Chapter 356. He. After a while, she awkwardly shook her head and said, "Have Jean save a seat for you? I'm afraid your fans will beat me." Gu Qinghua heard this, and a complicated emotion flashed in his eyes. She was even afraid of rumors when she saved a seat for him, but going to the library with Yi Jin, who was also a hot topic, she didn't care at all. In that instant, it was like something had been hurt. It was the thing people protected the most when they were young, their pride. But I'm not that familiar with him. Gu Qinghua had a smile on his face as he softly whispered in her ear. He just didn't understand. Every girl who sat at the same table as him was as happy as winning the lottery. But why was it that the girl who sat at the same table treated him like he was invisible? It was like the person sitting beside her wasn't a famous person, but rather a normal person. But Luo Qingxun awkwardly pursed her lips and said, "We're not that familiar." Although she didn't know if this was considered abuse. No matter what, she didn't want to have any unnecessary relations with Gu Qinghua. After all, he wasn't a good person. Gu Qinghua was clearly very awkward. He scratched his head and his lips curled as he said, "You're very special." Although he didn't know if this was intentional or not, he couldn't deny that he didn't hate this feeling. Even if it was a bit awkward, classmate Gu Qinghua in the third row, stand up and answer this question. Gu Qinghua heard this and casually stood up. Because he was good at English, he answered very smoothly, not having any difficulty at all. The English teacher pushed up her glasses. Because she didn't have any face, she didn't forget to add, "You have to be serious in class. Don't whisper to your desk mate." When this was said, everyone's eyes fell onto Luo Qingxun. What kind of situation was this? How was it related to her? After school, Bei Xiao sure had to attend a taekwondo class, so she didn't go to the library with Luo Qingxun. Xiao Mengtian also didn't come to find Yi Jin because she had to attend an art class. When she accidentally mentioned this, Yi Jin mentioned the only 3 years of his life that she didn't participate in. Their family adopted a girl, and that girl was Xiao Mengtian. Due to the debt of affection owed by the previous generation in the early years, it led to the subsequent repayment. Things happen like this. Yi Jin gave a serious nod, completely removing the so-called couple relationship. So my position as a childhood sweetheart shouldn't be shaken, right? Luo Qingxun smiled faintly, her eyes sparkling with Liguang. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 60%. This increase in favorability was a little sudden, and it felt a little familiar. When Yi Jin heard her words, he was clearly stunned, like she had said something incredible. After a long while, he sorted out his emotions and nodded. Yes. She walked beside him with a sweet smile on her face. It felt pretty good. However, what they didn't expect was that when they arrived at the library, the place that could not even fill half of the seats was instantly overcrowded. Everyone's gaze seemed to fall on the young man by the window. He had a faint smile on his face, and he felt very happy in his heart. Chapter 357. My God, Yi Jin. I only heard that Gu Qinghua was coming. No one said that Yi Jin would also be coming. Yo, this old lady's heart. This year's juniors are so handsome. Who is the person beside School Hunky? Why does he look so unfamiliar? It should be a classmate. It's just a coincidence. The library exploded, but Yi Jin didn't care at all. He turned over, and his eyes fell onto her as he said, "Since there's no space, let's go back." Luo Qingxun looked at Gu Qinghua. When their eyes met, he didn't look away and had that deep, playful look in his eyes. It was like he was proudly saying, "If you're not willing to help me save a spot, naturally there are many people who are willing to help me." All right. She softly looked away and turned to follow Yi Jin. After a short distance, Yi Jin's expression was a bit disappointed. He could have spent a few more hours with her in the library, but he never thought that it would be ruined like this. "See you tomorrow." She waved her hand at him with a sweet smile on her lips. "Let's exchange numbers." Yi Jin thought for a long time before finally speaking. He was wearing a white shirt and standing against the light. His eyes sparkled like stars, looking very good. All right, she nodded as she thought. She liked this suggestion very much. The first time she came to a world It didn't feel like she was chasing after a male god, but rather a male god chasing after her. Moreover, this kind of feeling wasn't bad at all. 3 days later, the high-temperature warning ended. Dream 1 High School entered the annual freshman military training. Luo Qingchan said she didn't like this exercise at all. Bei Xiaoshi was very happy, looking like she was going on an outing. Relax, I brought all the food you need. You don't need to bring anything, you won't starve to death. Bei Xiaoshi patted her chest as she promised with a heroic look. Ha! Luo Qingchan felt her body tremble as she gave a sneeze. What is this situation? Someone is cursing you. Yan, Zay, it can't be that someone is thinking of you, right? Ah, Yan, hey, Luo Qingchan, you caught a cold? Yes. She sniffed and said, it must be because the air conditioner was too cold last night. My Qingchan baby, you caught a cold the day before the military training. And it's very glorious. Bei Xiaoshi smiled and said, although I didn't bring any medicine, I did bring some grass ointment. You can apply it on your nose later. It works. Thank you, Shika-chan. As expected, having a good friend by his side was a warm feeling. On the bus, the teachers encouraged the students to do the old-fashioned. A choir. Teacher, how about we sing You Who Sat Next to Me? Gu Qingnua raised his hand, his eyes full of smiles. All right, classmate Gu Qingnua, you take the lead. The teacher clearly had special care for this kind of brave student. Of course, after all, the charisma of the school Hung Gu was there for all to see. Sure enough, the next second, there was an uproar. Gu Qingnua, Gu Qingnua, Gu Qingnua. Ku. Gu Qingnua cleared his throat and his eyes fell onto the third row of the bus as he began to sing. Tomorrow, will you remember the diary you wrote yesterday? Tomorrow, will you still remember the you who loved to cry the most? The teachers can't remember the you who can't guess the problem. I only remember the you who sat next to me when I flipped through the photos. Gu Qingnua's voice was very warm, as if the sunshine of the school hunk was singing next to your ear. Thinking about it like this, it was no wonder. If he wasn't so outstanding, how could the previous host wait 10 years for him? Chapter 358. Ding dong, a text message. Luo Qingchan looked down and saw that it was from the male god in the guide. Did you bring long sleeves? Yiji Jean. She blinked her eyes and quickly typed a few words on her phone. I didn't bring any. Are you cold? Luo Qingchan. Ding dong, I brought some. I'll give it to you later. Yiji Jean. Luo Qingchan looked at her phone and her eyelashes trembled. When she was about to reply, another text came in. I saw you sneezing this morning, just in case. Yiji Jean. Luo Qingchan pursed her lips and revealed a smile. Actually, the previous host had enjoyed this treatment before, but she didn't cherish it. After a few small interactions, she felt that Yiji Jean was a very cold person. In her eyes, when a cold person met the person they liked, all the love would become an unspeakable weight. In that parallel world, he had been waiting the entire time. He was clearly that dazzling, but he had lost to someone who was even better at speaking words of love than him. After getting out of the car, the teacher first arranged the dorms. The dorms were 4 people, so she and Bei Xiaoshi were in the same room. The remaining 2 spots were empty because of the number of girls in Class 7. But they never thought that a sudden bad news would break the peace that belonged to the 2 of them. There were 2 extra people in Class 2. Those 2 people were the ones that most of the girls in Class 2 didn't like, Chang Qianzi and Xiaomeng Tian. Luo Qingchan thought that this kind of development was really crazy. She was packing up with Bei Xiaoshi while changing into the military training uniform. Looking in the mirror, she was filled with youth. The previous host wasn't a very beautiful girl, but her eyes were very beautiful. It was like one could see the bottom with a single glance. I heard that you're sitting at the same table as our Qing Nuo. Cheng Qianzi came over and looked at her with a sharp gaze. Don't affect our Qing Nuo. After the military training, you can change seats with the teacher. What does it have to do with you whether she changes her seat or not? Hearing this, Bei Xiaoshi became angry. Qingchan was usually timid and weak, but she shouldn't be bullied like this. The desire to protect a weak student slowly rose up in his heart. What does me talking to her have to do with you? Cheng Qianzi acted like a big sister, suddenly coming forward to push Bei Xiaoshi. Bei Xiaoshi was not willing to be outdone and pushed back, angrily saying, "What are you going to do? Do you want to fight?" "Hey, you guys aren't going to fight, are you?" Xiao Mingtian glanced at Luo Qingshun and said snappily, "Although I don't really like some people fighting on the first day of military training, aren't they ashamed?" Thinking of the relationship between Yi Jin and Luo Qingshun, her heart felt uncomfortable. "Xiao Mingtian, what do you mean?" Cheng Qianzi turned and hit Xiao Mingtian as she said, "This old lady doesn't like you liking him." "Hey, are you crazy? What's the point of blindly connecting the dots? Do you have delusions of being persecuted?" Xiao Mingtian didn't want to be outdone as she grabbed Cheng Qianzi's hair and forcefully pushed her. Instantly, the two of them began to wrestle with each other, not willing to be outdone. It was as if all the accumulated resentment and anger only needed a tiny fuse to explode out. Luo Qingchun was stunned at this moment, all right? Of course, the result they faced in the end was. Chapter 359. Youths often use some particularly rebellious methods to prove their existence. Even if they were injured, they weren't afraid. They were like fully charged generators at that time, doing everything with great motivation. Dash, you guys are quite capable, fighting on the first day of military training? The head teacher was very angry, angrily scolding them in the barracks. Cheng Qianzi, Xiao Mingtian. The head teacher looked at their files on the computer as he said, "This isn't the first time you two have fought. When you were in the middle school, you had a fight because of a basketball game and were punished. What are you planning on continuing now?" Teacher, she was the first to make a move. Cheng Qianzi came out first, looking like a little lamb that had been wronged as her eyes filled with tears. "Damn, you're really good at complaining first." Xiao Mingtian's eyes popped out as she pointed at Bei Xiaoshi and said, "Ask them." As the saying goes, the enemy of an enemy is a friend. Although Xiao Mingtian didn't like Luo Qingshun very much, in this moment, they were standing on the same side because of a single matter. Cheng Qianzi didn't want to be outdone as she continued to act pitiful. "It was clearly the three of you who worked together to bully me. You're not embarrassed to say this? Is there a problem with your head? We bullied you?" Bei Xiaoshi gave a cold snort and said, "Weren't you the one who bullied Qingshun first?" Why did the topic fall on her out of the blue? "Humph, you just wanted to approach school, hunk goo, so you bullied me like this." Cheng Qianzi's eyes had a trace of hatred as she looked at the three of them and said this. "Enough." The head teacher slammed down the file on the table and said to them, "Run 10 laps on the field outside. You're not allowed to eat if you don't finish." The group of people walked out of the office with dark faces. There was a group of onlookers standing around them, as well as 2 dazzling youths. Luo Qingshun looked at the plaid jacket in Yi Jin's hand, and a trace of Li Guang flashed in her eyes. She did not stop and only gave him a quick glance before following Bei Xiaoshi. But she never thought that in this kind of school filled with rumors. At this moment, such a quiet young man was so brave. Yi Jin came forward without another word. In front of everyone's eyes, he put his coat over her and said, "I'll go with you." Wah! Everyone gave a sigh. No one would have thought that Yi Jin, who had never interacted with girls before, would say something like this. What's the situation? If this came from Gu Qing Nua's mouth, I would feel it was normal, but this is Yi Jin. I came from the same junior high school as Yi Jin. I've never seen him like this before. This treasures young girl's heart. He didn't pay too much attention to the discussions around him. Instead, he followed behind her and silently accompanied her. To the side, Gu Qing Nua's eyebrows twitched slightly. Unexpectedly, he also followed. He didn't forget to wave his hand at the group of fangirls behind him and say, "Come, we'll share blessings and misfortunes together." Everyone thought that he did this because of Cheng Qianzi. But no one knew that when Yi Jin took care of that young girl, there were ripples that appeared in his heart. She didn't know when it started, but she became a little concerned and lost. Chapter 360. On the military training track, there were only 4 girls being punished, but now there was a group of people running with them. This matter had angered the head teacher half to death, so the instructor said that he would give them the strictest training, After 10 laps, Luo Qingshun was about to collapse from exhaustion. Looking at the three people beside her, it didn't seem like their situation was any better. You just wait for me. Cheng Qianzi angrily stomped her foot before turning to Gu Qingna. Qingnua, we're leaving. Don't look, we're leaving. Luo Qingshun looked at his hesitant expression and his back as he left. She suddenly saw something different from this youth. But she knew that this thing was quite harmful. The head teacher really did as he said, giving them the strictest training. The sun was high up in the sky, but she felt her back being covered in cold sweat. Baby Qingshun, your face doesn't look good. Bei Xiaoshu walked over while moving closer to her, as she asked in a concerned voice, if you really can't do it, I'll send you to the infirmary. She wanted to speak, but she found that her throat couldn't make a sound. She waved her hand to show that she was fine. It wasn't that she wanted to show off, she just felt that if she raised her hand to report, she would become the center of attention again. She had become the center of attention many times recently, and she didn't like this feeling. Yi Jin, not far away, slightly knit his brows as a look of worry flashed in his eyes. Next, we'll be doing survival training. The instructor's strict voice rang out. Each one of you will go to the infirmary to get a bag, and the instructor will drive you into the mountains. There are necessities in the bags, and whichever group can come back in the shortest amount of time will be considered the winner. The first 3 places will be added to your score. Reporting to the instructor, there's so many mountains here. Are we go to the same one? No. The instructor continued. There are a total of 9 mountains here, and only Class 2 and Class 7 will be doing this training today. You will be randomly assigned to one of the mountains. Reporting to the instructor, I have no sense of direction. One of the girls with glasses raised her hand, looking like a yes man. Haha. The next second, there was a burst of laughter from the boys. The instructor glared at the female student and continued. It's 3 o'clock now. If you don't come back before 6 o'clock, use the smoke signal in the package and our instructor will come pick you up. However, this also means that you will get 0 point for this field expansion training. In the textbooks of youth, there was always a spirit that refused to admit defeat. The first military training was the place where this spirit showed its brilliance. Everyone hoped that they could let go of themselves here and shine brightly. But the reality was always a little bony. The groups for the military training were divided according to their dormitories. Truly unlucky, don't drag me down. Cheng Qianzi didn't forget to taunt them in the car. The 3 of them shrugged and said nothing. However, the expression in Xiao Mingtian's eyes changed slightly. There was a trace of determination and fear in her eyes. The path on the mountain was very slippery, and the sounds of birds, beasts, and insects were all around. It was basically impossible to tell the direction. There was a compass in the bag, so Bei Xiaoshu quickly determined the direction. But at this time, Xiao Mingtian softly said, My stomach hurts a bit. Can you come with me to the washroom? Her eyes fell onto Luo Qingshun, but she was immediately rejected by Bei Xiaoshu. Our baby Qingshun isn't feeling well today. I'll go with you. When they walked away, she felt a stick hit her back and she instantly fell to the ground. She vaguely saw many pairs of shoes, colorful shoes. Chapter 361. When she was young, she didn't care about anything and never thought about the consequences. Just like how Luo Qingshun and Bei Xiaoshu never thought that Cheng Qianzi and Xiao Mengtian would work together to deal with them. Host, host. The system's voice sounded in her ears, making her open her eyes with difficulty. The ground was very wet and her entire body was cold. She rubbed the back of her head and stood up with difficulty. This time, she had been negligent. But it wasn't because of any other reason that she let down her guard. It was because even if it was the supporting female lead, they were still first-year students. According to the law, they were still underage. She never thought that the first-year girls would have such a heavy heart, planning something that could harm someone's life. Luo Qingshun looked around. The sky was gradually turning dark, and it was drizzling. Her school bag and other things had already been taken away, so it should be past 6 now. The most important thing right now was to find Bei Xiaoshu first. To be honest, if she didn't need to find Bei Xiaoshu, she would have already exchanged for teleportation to slap her face, all right? Xiao. Sure. She opened her mouth to call out, but she found that she could no longer speak. Touching her forehead, it was burning hot. She walked in the direction they left, and when she was halfway there, she found Bei Xiaoshi lying in the rain. Luo Qingshun quickly walked over and helped her up, forcefully slapping her face twice. After that, she opened her eyes and shouted, "Who hit me? Scared. Scared. Me to death." Luo Qingshun let out a long sigh of relief. Seeing her, she calmed down. "What is going on?" Bei Xiaoshi looked at her before shaking her head and saying, "All right, don't say anything. You can't say anything anyway. In the end, we were schemed against by those two little bitches." After that, Luo Qingshun gave a thumbs up, showing her agreement. "But the one who hit me wasn't Xiao Meng Tian." Bei Xiaoshi doubtfully knit her brows. "She was always in front of me. There was..." "Oh." Bei Xiaoshi cut her off. "They found someone else?" Luo Qingshun gave a thumbs up again to show her approval. Bei Xiaoshi's best friend. She truly had a deep place in her heart. F***CK. Schemes %yen. %yen. Bei Xiaoshi gave a cold snort and said, "What can they gain by doing this? If we don't go back at 6 p.m., the instructor will take attendance." "Bah trash." Luo Qingshun heard this, and a trace of worry appeared in her eyes. Since the plan was so meticulous, then the instructor, were students Luo Qingshun and Bei Xiaoshi. The instructor looked at Xiao Meng Tian and asked. Xiao Meng Tian was a little panicked, and the bag in her hand accidentally fell to the ground. Cheng Qianzi quickly said, "Reporting to the instructor, classmate Luo Qingshun isn't feeling well, so Bei Xiaoshi is accompanying her back to the dorm." Nonsense. The instructor was obviously very angry, but he didn't suspect anything. He angrily said, "If you don't feel well, you should report to me, not go back to the dormitory on your own. These two students have received 0 points for their survival training. We will tell them." Cheng Qianzi raised a brow, looking at the instructor with a very serious look as she spoke. Xiao Meng Tian took a deep breath and suddenly looked up, looking right into Yi Zhijin's eyes. She hurriedly turned her eyes away, not daring to meet his probing gaze. "All right, today's military training will end here. Attention at ease. Everyone go back and rest. There will be a military song party tomorrow." Yay! Everyone was happy that they were free, except for Chapter 362. What to do? I feel like Ji Jin must know something. Xiao Meng Tian looked at the 2 empty spots in the dorm and couldn't help feeling worried. Actually, she was a bit regretful. Cheng Qianzi's godbrother had given her snacks earlier, and she wanted to take revenge. When she didn't know how to escape from the instructors and teachers, the survival training gave her a great chance. Of course, Xiao Meng Tian had participated because she had accidentally heard their conversation. Cheng Qianzi gave a cold snort and said in a voice of disdain, "You only have this bit of ambition, let me tell you." Meng Tian. At the end of the hallway, Yi Zhijin narrowed his eyes as they looked very deep. Zhijin. Xiao Meng Tian looked at his eyes and swallowed a mouthful of saliva in fear. "No, it wasn't me." Instantly, Yi Zhijin didn't say anything as he wildly ran down the stairs. Without knowing why, his heart was filled with fear, an unprecedented fear. Luo Qingshun's group was sitting in instructor number 3's car, which was the 3rd mountain. The rain in the sky was already very big, and the surroundings were completely dark. Yi Zhijin took his bag and a jacket before running off in the direction of the mountain. Zhijin. Xiao Meng Tian was panting as she ran into the rain. Looking at his back, she cried as she said, Is she really that important?" She knew that Yi Zhijin had always treated her as a little sister, and she knew that it was impossible for their relationship to turn into love. But she still had to work hard, right? Even if she played a small trick, even if her methods were very extreme, she still wanted to work hard. She wanted to let the person by the youth side always be her. After that, his cool voice slowly mixed in with the sound of the rain. "She's a dream of mine, a dream that I don't want to wake up from in this lifetime." After saying this, he stepped into the rain and ran into the mountain. The mountain path was very hard to walk on in the dark. Luo Qingshun asked for a compass and flashlight from the system and slowly moved forward. Speaking of this, why is your luck this good? You can actually find a flashlight and compass in this broken place? Bei Xiaoshi looked at Luo Qingshun beside her with a surprised look and said with a smile, "It can't be that you picked up some hardtack or something, right? System, call the system. Give me 2 more hardtacks." Suddenly, he felt like acting tough. "Ding, you have obtained 2 compressed biscuits. Please check your right pocket." Coo. She gently shook her head to clear her mind. She then took out a biscuit from her pocket and gave it to Bei Xiaoshi. "For you." "Damn." Bei Xiaoshi opened her mouth and took the biscuit. "You're simply a god." Cough. She nodded gently, her head burning with pain. The feeling of catching a cold and being drenched in the rain was really not good. "I see that your condition is really bad. We have to hurry." Because it was raining and the mountain was slippery, they couldn't see the pit under their feet. If they were not careful, they would fall down. Little sure. Luo Qingshun gripped her arm tightly and bit her lip. "Hold on tight." The rain got heavier and heavier, dripping down her long eyelashes in large droplets. The consciousness in her mind had already begun to blur. The toppling of the mountain made it impossible for her to stand firm, and she was unconsciously pulled down by Bei Xiaoshi. In the next second, when she was about to fall, a pair of strong hands wrapped around her waist and held her in his arms. Chapter 363. Luo Qingshun felt her vision turn dark as she fell into a warm embrace. There was a faint grass scent coming from him that mixed with the smell of the earth around them. It was a very pleasant smell. She could vaguely hear the conversation between Bei Xiaoshi and Yi Jijin. "Your hand is injured. How about I carry baby Qingshun?" "No need. You should be careful. But you're bleeding so much." "It's fine." No one knew just how happy he was in his heart. He could carry her like this and keep walking. He really wanted this road to be a bit longer. Just a bit longer would be good. But reason won over emotion because she was still having a fever. On the way, he didn't know how many branches had cut his foot, but he didn't feel any pain at all. The girl on his back was breathing softly beside his ear, making his heart beat faster. Luo Qingshun was already in the infirmary when she opened her eyes and Bei Xiaoshi was by her side. Yi Jijin was lying in the bed next door with a drip. "Wah, you woke up even faster than him." Bei Xiaoshi made a shu sign as she said in a soft voice. "The doctor said that he went into shock from losing too much blood and his condition has just stabilized." "Loss? What is this about losing too much blood?" she softly said with a confused look in her eyes. "You don't know that when he was carrying you, there was a deep cut on his arm, but he didn't care at all. And carried you all the way to the infirmary. You fainted after being carried to the bed, and the ground was covered in blood. It scared this treasure to death." Bei Xiaoshi pushed her arm and asked, "Just what kind of relationship do you have? School hasn't even started that long. Love at first sight?" Luo Qingshun heard this and turned to look at Yi Jijin's pale face, as a layer of mist appeared in her eyes. She always felt that her great childhood sweetheart was a silent and infatuated knight. She pursed her lips into a faint smile and said, "We are childhood sweethearts." "That's right, childhood sweethearts." In order to get Gu Qing Nuo, the previous host had never mentioned her relationship with Yi Jijin to anyone else. So no one knew that they were childhood sweethearts and that they used to be so close. But now, she wanted everyone to know about the most beautiful past between them. "What?" Bei Xiaoshi shouted in shock. The young man on the bed next to her gently moved his finger. "What are you doing?" Cough. "Keep your voice down." Luo Qingshun frowned and explained, "It's normal that you don't know. I moved when I was in junior high school and never contacted him again." Xiaoshi is stunned. Bei Xiaoshi excitedly covered her mouth and said, "You're actually childhood friends with the school hunk. Damn, not bad. I thought you'd be the weak baby Qingshun for the rest of your life." "Who's weak?" Luo Qingshun gave a soft snort and said with a cold look in her eyes, "As for that Cheng Qianzi, I've already thought of a way to deal with her. As the saying goes, if people don't offend me, I won't bother them. But if people offend me, I'll pay them back double." This saying that had been passed down for thousands of years couldn't be wrong. Right, right, right. Bei Xiaoshu nodded and said, "Don't let me see her again, otherwise I'll slap her twice in anger. You still want to fight?" Luo Qingqin's lips curled into a faint smile. Her eyes narrowed as she said, "To deal with this kind of person, the only things that can hurt her are not flesh wounds. She definitely isn't afraid of fighting, and you won't gain any benefits." Bei Xiaoshu heard this, and her eyes lit up as she said, "Baby Qingshun, why do I feel like you've changed? Your expression when you spoke was so handsome." Chapter 364. Because of the serious consequences of the wilderness survival training, the school reserved the right to pursue this matter. The most important task right now was to rearrange the dorms. Cheng Qianzi and Xiaoming Tian were moved to another dorm. When Luo Qingqin's group returned, they were already gone. She took a leave of absence the next day and didn't go to the military training. The instructor was filled with guilt, so he agreed very quickly. Luo Qingqin thought that it was right. If it wasn't for her quick wits, she might have already gone to see God. This instructor would definitely take responsibility and might even be locked up for 3 years. After buying breakfast in the cafeteria, she knocked on the door to the infirmary. There was a faint smell of alcohol in the air. Yi Jin was leaning back in bed, reading a magazine. There was a warm breeze outside the window, and the curtains were slowly blown up. The smell of grass after the rain slowly floated in. If you thought that this scene was very comfortable, you were wrong. Because the tables to the left and right of Yi Jin were filled with breakfast, there were at least 100 buns. Every young and naive person would appear when the person they cared about needed care the most. Perhaps when breakfast was delivered and their eyes met, their hearts would beat faster and create a beautiful love story. Luo Qingqin put the breakfast in her hand behind her and walked in. Yi Jin mechanically looked up and down. But when he lowered his head, he suddenly looked up and nervously took off his headphones as he said, "Have you rested enough?" Her face looked much better, but she had been out in the rain yesterday and had a fever. Why didn't she rest well today and come here for? Although his mind was thinking this, his heart couldn't help being filled with joy. For that kind of cold virus, as long as you put the anti-inflammatory medicine in your body, you'll be fine in a minute. She casually sat down in a chair on the side and looked at his pale face as she knit her brows and said, "How can you be like someone who has lost blood and needs to rest for a while?" Yi Jin heard this, and a blush appeared on his pale face. Just how happy he was, the girl in front of him would never understand. In the next second, he changed the topic. He looked in her clear eyes and said, "I'm hungry." "Ah." Luo Qingqin shifted her gaze and pointed at the buns on the table. Why aren't you eating?" And his gaze stopped at the bag on her left. "I wasn't hungry earlier, but now I'm hungry." Perhaps some people didn't believe it, but if ordinary things were bought by people who cared about them, they would become especially delicious. For example, her breakfast. Luo Qingqin was slightly stunned. Her eyes flashed with a touch of liguang. She suddenly felt that this Yi Jin was very good-looking, one that she would never get tired of looking at. Perhaps Gu Qingnua was much stronger than Yi Jin in a certain aspect. For example, his infectious smile or his playful tone. But in her heart, even 100 Gu Qingnua couldn't compare to a single Yi Jin. This was because the young man in front of him had an excessive obsession. He was obsessed with protecting and waiting. Luo Qingqin revealed a faint smile and handed the breakfast in her hand to Yi Jin. "I wonder if your taste has changed. What he liked to eat before were custard buns and bean buns. After 3 years, she didn't know if he still liked them. Ding! Affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 70%. He was a bit surprised. His pale face revealed a faint smile as he looked at her and said, "I haven't changed at all." Chapter 365. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse. It was the military song party. Luo Qingqin did not want to participate, but Bei Xiaoshu said that if someone acted pretentious in front of her, she would go and slap them. All right, this was very Bei Xiaoshu. In Luo Qingqin's memories, the military song party was a group of people gathered in a circle and listened to the soldiers sing "Green Flower of the Army." But when she arrived, she found that this party was very different. This was because it was not the soldiers singing, rather it was the students who borrowed the soldiers' guitars and sang by themselves. The person on the stage wore glasses and looked very ordinary, but when he sang, it was really nice to listen to. After the song finished, Luo Qingchun gave a heartfelt applause. Your batch of students is very honored. Today is the 30-year anniversary of our military training base. The instructor said this as someone brought the piano over. Today, let us sing Green Flower of the Army. Pooh! Everyone gave a sigh. The instructor is a bit creative. That's right, it's already 30 years. Change. Cuckoo. The instructor cleared his throat and said in an embarrassed voice, Our military training base only has one instructor who can play the piano, and he is directing Green Flower of the Army. Pooh! There was another sigh. Sure. Luo Qingchun's eyes lit up a little as she looked at her and said, Do you know how to get revenge? How to get revenge? Bei Sure immediately became excited as she said, Tell me, I will go through fire and water, or... Wait, stop. Luo Qingchun said with a faint smile, Focus on me. After saying this, she suddenly stood up and said, Reporting to the instructor, I can play. System calling the system. Ding, 500 exchange points have been taken. You have exchanged for piano skills limited to this world. It really was a telepathic system. Could this skill become permanent next time? The host will also receive a piano score that has been stored in her mind. Although the system could not agree to the host's unreasonable request, it still gave her something else. Yes. Wow. At this moment, everyone's eyes fell on Luo Qingchun. This kind of gaze made her body tremble slightly, and she felt a sense of suffocation in the depths of her heart. This was how the host felt. In the past, whenever she received such gazes, she would be the target of public criticism. If it wasn't Cheng Qianzi, it would be another girl that liked Gu Qingnua. She was afraid of being the center of attention because she couldn't bear the unpleasant rumors. Luo Qingchun stretched out her hand and placed it on her chest. It was as if she was telling the owner of this body to leave everything to her. In the future, no one could bully her anymore. Absolutely good. You have the spirit of a soldier. The instructor looked at her and nodded with satisfaction. Come up. Cheng Qianzi curled her lips and rolled her eyes, looking at Gu Qingnua not far away. She thought that he would also look at her, but she never thought that his gaze would be focused on the girl sitting in front of the piano. Cheng Qianzi covered her chest. So angry. She was so angry that her body was slightly trembling. Luo Qingchun's lips curled into a faint smile as Yi Jin's figure flashed in her mind. A beautiful piano sound slowly rang out. It was just pure music, there was no singing. Humph! What's so great about playing the piano? Isn't your singing just tone deaf? After the first part, Cheng Qianzi gave a cold snort and spoke in a voice of disdain. If she wasn't tone deaf, why didn't she sing? Is there anyone who can sing this song? The instructor saw that the situation was a bit awkward, so he came out to ask. I can. Chapter 366. Damn, why do I feel like our school's two male gods are fighting over the same girl? This scene, why does it feel like a drama? Yeah, what kind of background does that Luo Qingchun have? Her looks aren't bad, but she is an earth-shattering beauty. That's right, Is it worth it for two male gods? There was another round of gossip from the crowd. Yi Jin picked up the guitar on the ground and casually sat down. He gently plucked a few notes and successfully created a cheer. Since this classmate knows how to play an instrument, then let him come. The instructor looked at Gu Qingnua and said, There will be a lot of time to perform later. Gu Qingnua wanted to say something, but seeing that he was at a disadvantage, he gave a shrug and said with a smile, As you wish. In his seat, Gu Qingnua's eyes gradually became deep. Cheng Qianzi, who had been sitting in front of him, had unknowingly sat down beside him. She pouted her lips and complained, Qingnua, you mustn't get too close to this girl. She's not a good thing. Cheng Qianzi. He angrily called her by her full name. I'm begging you. Can you control your temper? In the past, he only felt that Cheng Qianzi was a bit overbearing, but since they were childhood sweethearts, he could tolerate it a bit more. But now that she was this aggressive, he really didn't like it. Ching knew all. Her eyes were stunned as they filled with a bit of pain. She bit her lip and said, "You've never been this fierce to me before." Since they were young, Gu Qinghua had always been dazzling, being the center of attention wherever he went. As for her, she was his childhood sweetheart. She had always stood in an important position that others envied. She was often proud of this because in his heart, the three words Cheng Qianzi were the most special. "So annoying, I'm going to the bathroom." He knit his brows. When he stood up, there was the sound of a guitar and piano that slowly sounded behind him. Then there was the gentle voice of a young man, entering his ears inch by inch. It made his anxious heart even more unsettled. "When we were young, I would always hold your hand like this. I just hoped that I could be by your side. In order to protect you, I accidentally cut my finger. This small injury made you cry and your heart ache. As we grew up, we became further and further apart, separating the two sides of the earth. When would they meet again? That familiar smiling face." When Yiji Jin's voice reached Luo Qingchen's ears, her lips couldn't help curling into a smile. The students unconsciously clapped along with the melody. Luo Qingchen, at this moment, felt that she was the little girl who followed beside School Hunk Yi. She followed his footsteps and walked out with a tacit understanding that only belonged to them. At the end of the song, the fangirls at the scene couldn't help but cheer. Yiji Jin revealed a faint smile as a sparkle appeared in his deep eyes. He never thought that Luo Qingchen could play this song that he liked. She nodded slightly. When she saw his focused gaze, she couldn't help blushing. Some feelings had already settled down over the years, and when the time was right, they would blossom and bear fruit. He put away his guitar, bowed slightly, and walked off the stage. Thinking of the previous host's memories, whenever Gu Qinghua was in the limelight, he would always be very high-key. But Yiji Jin was different. He was always silent, putting everything in his heart, giving people the feeling of spring breeze. She liked this kind of youth. Chapter 367. Just like that, the military training came to an end with great fanfare. Because Cheng Qianzi and Xiao Mengtian were not 18 yet, the survival training incident was only a serious warning. After all, there were no injuries and there was no certification, so there was no evidence. The most they could do was lie, but there was no way to convict them. Bei Xiaoshe was very dissatisfied with this ruling, but the school had suppressed this matter, so there was nothing she could do. Luo Qingchen didn't care, since this couldn't convict them. However, there was a large change in the rumors in Dream One High School. Did you hear? School Hunk Gu's desk made his School Hunk his childhood friend. Is this true? Where did you hear this? Isn't Yi Jinji's couple with Xiao Mengtian? Who knows? Didn't all these couples come from Xiao Mengtian? School Hunk Yi has never admitted anything. Then that means that Cheng Qianzi is also a fake. Haha, it's possible. At this moment, the two gossiping girls didn't know that there was a person standing not far behind them. Cheng Qianzi tightly clenched her fist and muttered through gritted teeth, "Luo Qingchen." On the other side, Achu, who was scolding her. Luo Qingchen unconsciously sniffed and touched her ears out of habit. The next second, the person next to her handed her a note. Since it was a makeup class after school, the English teacher was in a rather anxious mood. As she wrote on the blackboard, she did not forget to remind them, "Don't think that I don't notice if some students try to play tricks while I'm writing." At the beginning of their youth, they thought that they could secretly do something when the teacher was turning the blackboard. But they didn't know why they were always discovered. That was because one day, when they stood on the podium and looked at the students below, they gave a sigh of realization. It really was clear at a glance. Luo Qingchen's hand trembled, and the paper almost fell to the ground. Opening the paper, she saw Gu Qinghua's beautiful handwriting. "Is your cold not better yet?" Gu Qinghua, Luo Qingchen shook her head gently and put the note into the drawer. "I think all of you are almost done with your revision, right? You all got full marks for the first month's pretest, right?" The English teacher threw the test papers in his hand to the students in the first row and said, "Tonight's homework is 2 test papers. They are all very introductory questions. It won't take much of your time." Sigh. A mournful wail sounded, In the high school campus, every teacher felt that they didn't assign much homework, but they never thought that when all the homework was added together, it could last until midnight every night. The next day, he woke up at 6 o'clock and walked into the campus with big dark circles under his eyes. As soon as she sat down, she saw the mowling and breakfast in the drawer. Morning, beside her, Gu-Ching Nuo glanced at the cold medicine and gave her a bright smile. You'll recover quickly after taking the medicine. Thank you. Luo Qingchun nodded faintly. She picked up the breakfast and ate 2 mouthfuls. An imperceptible smile appeared at the corner of her mouth, because this breakfast proved what she was thinking. Sometimes, what you see or hear on the surface may not be the truth. Maybe right now you are looking at someone in front of you, constantly following his footsteps, thinking that all the beauty around you is related to him. But when you stop, you will realize that the person watching you has always been behind you. Chapter 368. Yi Jijin had never mentioned the cold medicine to her, but she knew that only this youth who grew up with her would know what kind of bun she liked. The buns weren't bought, they were made. The date-flavored buns. The first monthly exam came closer and closer, and the students were all studying in an orderly manner. Sometimes when you entered this atmosphere, you would find that you weren't a space traveler at all, but rather a normal high school student, following them through their youth and looking forward to the future. But there were some bumps on the road of youth. For example, her physics grades really were too horrible to look at. When she was shamelessly exchanging with the system, Yi Jijin told her that she could still be saved. Luo Qingchun thought that since she could have a chance to interact with a male lead and she didn't need to take the initiative, why wouldn't she do it? Actually, there was a feeling in her heart that she had never felt before. It was a feeling of being protected after coming here. As the exam approached, the library was filled with people. In the memories of the previous host, Yi Jijin was definitely a true top student. He always had full marks in the 3rd year of middle school. So Dream One High School never thought that he would enter the high school section. Because the high school section was very far from the middle school section, there were many high school students who either applied to other high schools or chose to live on campus. Yeah, look, it's Yi Jijin. So handsome, really handsome. Say, if I go over and talk to him, will he look up at me? So embarrassing, don't go. I also feel that the male god can only be watched from afar. I'm jealous of Luo Qingchun. Luo Qingchun heard their whispers, and her lips couldn't help curling into a smile. She casually nodded her head, but her gaze just happened to meet his pitch-black eyes. If you're distracted, you really can't be saved. Yi Jijin's brows slightly twitched as he drew 2 lines on her test score. After that, Luo Qingchun picked up the eraser on the table and covered up the large 60 points. It had to be said, after the military training incident, she rarely saw Qiao Meng Tian, and she never came to find Yi Jijin. As the saying goes, if you have a question in your heart, you have to ask. Why hasn't her little sister come to see you recently? Luo Qingchun raised her eyebrows with a faint smile. Yi Jijin helped her write the test while casually replying, I'm living on campus. This answer was completely beyond her scope of thinking. Living on campus? He pushed the test book in front of her and said, Physics is not like other subjects. Some things can't be learned by rote. There are many. Wait, Luo Qingchun interrupted her, her eyes filled with confusion. Why do you live on campus? It was no wonder Yi Jijin had been sending her home all day and the school was filled with rumors. If this continued, her parents would have to be called in. Yi Jijin was a bit surprised. He wanted to say something, but he found that he couldn't say anything. In the end, he could only give the most general answer. Going back and forth is too far. It will take a lot of time. Actually, what he was thinking was, I'm worried about you going home alone. Since the matter last time, he had been a bit afraid. It was better to pick her up after class. That way he wouldn't have to worry about her getting home safely. Chapter 369. The day of the monthly exam was quickly approaching, and her relationship with Gu-Ching Nuo was only limited to sending love letters. She had to mention Bei Xiaoshi. The number of love letters she sent was no less than Luo Qingchun. It's the monthly exam tomorrow. Are you nervous? Are you excited? Bei Xiaoshi softly poked her back with a pen as she said, You're most afraid of math and physics. Have you made any progress in your remedial classes? When she said this, Bei Xiaoshi looked over at Yi Jin at the same table and revealed a teasing smile. Luo Qingshun slightly knit her brows. She pursed her lips and softly tapped her head with the pen as she said, "You should properly take the exam. Don't be at the bottom. I've heard that after the monthly exam, the seats will be arranged according to grades. Those with good grades and those with bad grades will sit together and they can be taught." Bei Xiaoshi softly whispered in her ear, "You have to properly take the exam. If you're lucky, we'll be desk mates. Look at how beautiful you are." Luo Qingshun turned around and couldn't help trembling when she saw the word physics. Speaking of this, couldn't physics be changed to math? She was very confident in her math, all right. Every student who stepped into the high school campus had to go through the monthly exam for the first time in their life. The teachers always said that this monthly exam was very important, but they didn't know that this was just the beginning of a large pile of exams. On the third day after the end of the monthly exam, the results of the first year of high school were posted on the red list on a glass window downstairs. First place, Yang Shui, 1032 points. Ninth place, Luo Qingshun, 980 points. Luo Qingshun kept looking down, but she didn't see Yi Jin's name on the first page. Until the second page. 62nd place, Yi Jin, 900 points. What is this situation? The 10,000-year first place Yi Jin actually only got 900 points this time. It can't be that his grades dropped because of the rumors of being in love, right? He's still so handsome. He can get 900 points just because he's in love. I've been doing homework all day. Why did I only get 620 points? The heavens are unfair. Are you certain you weren't doing homework while playing with your phone? Luo Qingshun frowned. She was puzzled. According to Yi Jin's previous results, even if it fell, it couldn't have fallen this much. Dream Number 1 High School was a gathering camp for top students, especially this year's first year of high school. The results of the students were especially good. 900 points might be one of the best in other schools, but in Dream Academy, it would be in the top 50. She didn't have time to think too much about it. She ran to the class, wanted to see his report card to see which subjects he didn't do well. Xiaoshi. Luo Qingshun looked at the empty spot behind her and asked Xiaoshi, "Where's Yi Jin?" "Oh, the teacher called him to the office just now." Bei Xiaoshi handed the list on the table to her and said, "This is your report. How is it? Did you look at the red list? What is your rank in the year?" Luo Qingshun heard this and didn't say anything. Her eyes fell onto the grades under the physics textbook on Yi Jin's table. She abruptly picked it up, only to discover that the moment she flipped it to the front, her gaze trembled slightly. There was a strange feeling that came from the depths of her heart, a bitterness with a bit of warmth. "What is it? Are you surprised at the perfect score for the top student?" Bei Xiaoshi didn't see anything strange as she asked this. After that, Luo Qingshun put down the report card and turned to run towards the teacher's office. Bei Xiaoshi picked up the report card on the table with a confused look, but then her face was filled with shock. Chapter 370. As she ran, everyone's eyes focused on her, but she didn't care at all. That outstanding and quiet youth. Because of her, he was suddenly called out and became imperfect. "Yi Jin, I hope my admiration won't stop you from shining." She was panting as she stood at the door of the teacher's office, but she stopped. The words inside made her eyes unable to help turning a bit red. "Teacher, I have nothing to say." Yi Jin slightly shook his head with a deep look in his eyes. You have to study. You are the biggest hope of our class." The teacher said with a look of disappointment, "You've always gotten full marks in math, so even if your grades have dropped, it's impossible for it to be a 0. Teacher, there are many things in this world that suddenly become bad." Yi Jin looked forward with a serious look and said, "For example, Einstein became a fool in a single night." The teacher scratched his head as his face turned red from anger. He angrily roared, "Classmate Yi, this is an insult to your studies." Pucci, when this was said, Luo Qingshun, standing at the door, couldn't help breaking out in laughter. "What does this have to do with an insult? Who is at the door? Come in for me." "It's over." Luo Qingshun shrank her neck back and softly opened the door. She revealed an awkward smile as she said, "Hello, teacher." "Oh, it's Xinshun." The teacher's voice instantly became gentle. He cleared his throat and asked, "Do you need something?" "That." Luo Xinshun looked at Yi Jin and said, "I am a math representative of our class. I heard from my classmates that classmate you didn't do well on a math test and was called to the office, so I came to watch." "See?" "Oh, no. I came to see what was going on." She expressed that she was a little nervous. After all, it was a little difficult to tell a lie in a serious manner. This is called not doing well. The teacher was trembling in anger as he threw Yi Jin's math test onto the table and said, "The answer to each question is written at the bottom. This is a challenge to the authority of learning." "Ah." Luo Qingshun took a look and nodded with a serious look. She looked at Yi Jin and said, "Why are you so careless?" Yi Jin's mind went blank as he looked at the teacher and said, "Our math class representative has always gotten full marks. If she's at the same desk, I won't be so careless next time." Luo Qingxin and the head teacher both showed a confused expression at this moment. What kind of suggestion was this? It was completely unrelated, all right? Just as the form teacher was at a loss for words, two girls walked in from the door. They seemed to be here to hand in their homework, but their gossiping voices were especially loud. "Oh, look, isn't that the rumored couple in school?" Yes. I've finally been discovered by teacher." Falling in love when you're still underage, sigh. What a bad atmosphere. He's been caught this time. The conversation between the two girls was completely different from the usual onlookers. From the very beginning, it was targeted. Every word was a gem, and it was very unpleasant to hear. The form teacher's face turned dark as he roared at the two girls. "Did you two knock on the door? What did you come in for?" We. They were all first-year girls, so being roared at by the teacher, their faces turned white in fear. They looked at each other in dismay, and then immediately ran away. Luo Qingxian looked at the form teacher with a look of admiration before saying with an awkward smile, "Teacher, this kind of gossip, you can't. You too, immediately call your parents." Chapter 371. In the puzzle of youth, there would always be one or two arrogant indulgences. At that time, we had the capital and ability to do so. Everyone knew Yi Jin's thoughts. He wanted to be desk mates with Luo Qingxian. Gu Qingnuan naturally knew about this matter, but when he heard Bei Xiaoshi say that Yi Jin got 0 points, he immediately changed his mind. His heart suddenly became restless. After that, there were the two girls' righteous remarks, just like the three good students. But the changes in life needed a bit of pleasant surprise, so there wouldn't be a bit of regret. The teacher never thought that Luo Qingxian and Yi Jin's parents would come to school at the same time. Moreover, they were holding hands and had a bunch of shopping items in their hands, looking like they had just finished shopping. Oh no, it wasn't like it was. The door to the office was filled with people watching the show. Everyone was talking to each other, discussing in small voices. Luo Qingxian and School Hunk, yes, mothers are so young. Not just young, they're so beautiful. But why do the two of them seem to know each other? Now that you mention it, I also have this feeling that you two are Luo Qingxian and Yi Jin's parents, right? The teacher pushed up his glasses, looking at them with an awkward and surprised look as he asked this. That's right. The two parents nodded in a confused manner. Luo Qingxian and Yi Jin didn't have any contact because they went to different schools, but that didn't mean their mothers didn't have contact. The teacher didn't know that the mothers of the two students had been best friends since they were young. That the two of you know each other? That's right. The two parents said at the same time. Instantly, the teacher's face became a bit awkward. He cleared his throat and looked at Luo Qingxian and Yi Jin standing on the side before saying in a serious voice, "The most important thing for a child in school is to study. Student Ye's math results in the monthly test were too bad." "Oh, really?" Yimu looked at her son in surprise and said excitedly, "You finally didn't get full marks." The homeroom teacher frowned and continued, "I might not have made it clear just now, but this student Yi scored a 0 in math this time." "That's right, a 0. Do you know that you scored a 0? "Ah." Yimu looked at him in surprise. Then her eyes fell on Luo Qingqian's mother and asked, Is Qingqing good at math? I didn't do so well in the past. Recently, I've been getting full marks in tests. Luo Mu looked at Luo Qingchun, blinked her eyes gently, and asked with a little lovely, "Daughter, how about this exam?" "Not bad." Luo Qingchun's eyebrows moved slightly. She stood in place, somewhat confused. "That's great." With a smile, Yimu looked at the head teacher seriously and said, "Teacher, you can arrange Xinchun to sit at the same table with my son, so that they can complement each other. Next month's exam results will definitely come up." The homeroom teacher's face turned dark, and he almost couldn't breathe. He took a deep breath and said, "Two parents, this suggestion. Isn't this suggestion good?" Yimu looked at her best friend beside her and asked, "Baby, what do you think?" "I think it's quite good." Luo Mu gave a serious nod, showing her agreement. Chapter 372. Whoa! Mother Yi excitedly jumped up and looked at Yi Jin as she said, You. This reaction is normal. The teacher pushed up his glasses as he continued. For children these days, studying is... Son, you finally understood. Mother Yi came forward with sparkling eyes. She patted his shoulder and said, "Good. You didn't waste me and your Auntie Lynn's efforts." Coo. The teacher held his chest and took 2 steps back to lean against the desk, as his face turned completely red. Luo Qingqin's eyes were also a bit stunned. She blinked in a daze before looking at Yi Jin's mother in front of her. She indicated that she was no less stunned than the teacher, who was about to faint from anger. "No wonder you've been living on campus recently. You have a future. You childhood sweethearts, your Auntie Lynn and I have already." Pong! There was a large sound from behind that cut off Mother Ye's words. Turning around, the teacher had fainted. Luo Qingxin and Yi Jin could be said to have become famous people in the school overnight. Although school hunk, he was also a famous person. The rumors in the school spread from 1 to 10 and from 10 to 100. Over time, there were more and more rumors that kept appearing. The teacher had been resting at home for a while, and the re-ranking after the monthly exam had been delayed again and again. Until an early autumn afternoon, the teacher came into the classroom with a thick coat. Although his face was still a bit pale, his mind was still quite good. Coo. He cleared his throat and said to the class, "There are 2 things, 1 good news and 1 bad news. Which one do you want to hear first?" "The bad news." One of the more energetic boys in the class raised his hand and said, "It's sweet after the bitter." "The bad news is that because my body hasn't been good in the past few days, the re-ranking of the class has been delayed. The second monthly exam is coming soon, so you should study well. As for the ranking, based on this semester's final exam, those with the best grades will be placed together. For those of you who don't like to study, after this monthly exam, you will be reassigned to different classes. You may not be in the key class anymore. Think about it carefully." Wow! The boy who was more energetic raised his hand again and said, "Teacher, it's only the first 2 months of high school, and we're already divided into good and bad classes. It's easy to be in the mood for studying. Your presence here is affecting my mood." "Shut up." The head teacher threw a piece of chalk at the boy's head. It was extremely accurate. Lulu. Although the boy was unwilling, he still obediently shut his mouth. "Teacher, what's the good news?" One of the boys raised his hand. The moment she raised her hand, she did not forget to give the boy a high five. The head teacher rolled his eyes at him and said, "The good news is that the annual basketball competition is about to begin. If you want to participate, you can come to me and sign up. There will be a prize." "Teacher, I heard from the seniors that our high school is always the first to be eliminated in the basketball competition every year." The homeroom teacher's face instantly changed. "So, this year, we must wash away the shame of the past with blood." In short, the school attaches great importance to the annual high school basketball competition. All the boys in our class who are 175 meters tall and above will sign up unconditionally. Young people will always have a strong sense of collective honor at some point in time. Chapter 373. A week later, the basketball game came as scheduled. Dream One High School had very heroically drawn the strongest opponent in S City, Marshall III High School. This school was famous for their sports and arts students, They had already been S-City's high school basketball champions for many years. Because the third-year students didn't participate in basketball and the second-year students were beaten by the high schools, the main force of this basketball game fell onto the first-year students. Yiji Jin and Gu Qinghua, who were both tall and handsome, were already confirmed as the main force of this year's basketball game. When this news came out, it attracted all the fans of Dream One High School. As long as there were two male gods playing, they would all go and reserve seats. Early this morning, Bei Xiaoshi, who hadn't talked to her desk mate for 10,000 years, had miraculously bought a cup of milk tea for Yiji Jin. Yiji Jin was stunned, but his next action was to pat Luo Qingqin's shoulder. She turned around and looked at Bei Xiaoshi. Bei Xiaoshi smiled at her and said, "Can you reserve a seat for me on the basketball court tonight?" Every contestant could bring a friend to sit in a row and cheer for them, showing off their imposing manner. "Sorry," Yiji Jin said with an awkward smile. "I want to bring—" "All right, don't speak." Bei Xiaoshi cut him off and helplessly spread her hands as she said, "Valuing girls over desk mates. I understand. But I do have a question." Luo Qingqin looked at Xiaoshi and said, "You don't seem like someone who cares about this kind of basketball game." At least in her eyes, Bei Xiaoshi wouldn't care enough to ask Yiji Jin for a seat. "I'll help you reserve a seat." While Bei Xiaoshi was stuttering, Gu Qinghua turned around. His lips had a beautiful smile as he looked at her and spoke. Bei Xiaoshi cleared her throat and said, "Your family's Cheng Qianzi wouldn't kill me, right?" "No, she's with her classmates." Gu Qinghua gave an awkward smile when he heard this. Finally, his eyes fell onto Luo Qingqin's face as he said, "Deskmate, you two have to properly cheer for us." Luo Qingqin looked at Yiji Jin and said, "You have to fight well." In the memories of the previous host, Gu Qinghua and Yiji Jin's basketball skills were not bad. Although it wasn't certain if they could beat Martial 3, they definitely wouldn't be beaten. When Luo Qingqin and Bei Xiaoshi arrived at the basketball court, the court was already filled with people. There were even some people who didn't manage to grab a seat and sat in the middle of the stairs with their own boards. Damn, so this is what it feels like to be stared at by several hundred pairs of eyes. Bei Xiaoshi used her elbow to touch Luo Qingqin's hand and said, "Why does it feel like we're being targeted?" "Yes." She nodded slightly and revealed a faint smile. "I'm used to it." Yiji Jin walked in front of her, moving very slowly, like he was deliberately waiting for her. She could feel this feeling, and her heart couldn't help but warm up. I was wondering why the seats for this year's Dreaming Club were so full. The members of Martial 3 had already changed their uniforms and deliberately came over from the side. They looked at them with a look of disdain as they said, "Your looks are all right, but your bodies are just like a little boy's." "Don't you think so? Ha 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 ha. Why don't you look at yourself? You're just like a big man. Those who don't know would think that you're 34. Bei Xiaoshi snappily rolled her eyes as she gave a cold snort. "Little girl, what did you say?" When that person heard this, he raised his fist like he was ready to fight. Chapter 374. Captain. That man named Wang Gang immediately admitted defeat and rubbed the back of his head as he said, "I was just scaring people. How could I really make a move?" Su Jiyuan looked at him before his eyes finally fell onto Bei Xiaoshi. His face was very delicate and he was very handsome, with an elegant aura coming from him. He couldn't compare to Wang Gang at all. Bei Xiaoshi looked away in a panic and pursed her lips, walking over to her friend's table. Luo Qingqin looked at Su Jiyuan and memories kept rolling in her mind. Finally, after 3 seconds, she remembered this person in front of her. Bei Xiaoshi's first love. Perhaps it couldn't be called first love. It could only be called unrequited love. "So you asked Yiji Jin for this seat because you wanted to see Su Jiyuan." Luo Qingqin sat down and saw Bei Xiaoshi's face turn red, so her lips couldn't help curling. Su Jiyuan was their middle school classmate, but they weren't in the same class. When they were in middle school, there weren't any handsome guys. Or to put it mildly, the handsome guys hadn't matured yet. Su Jiyuan's 1 meter and 80 centimeters tall figure instantly became the focus of the school. Adding the fact that he was good at basketball, he became the idol of many girls. Of course, this didn't include Bei Xiaoshi. Their meeting came from a beautiful accident. Bei Xiaoshi had the same personality at that time, being very straightforward and cute. She met Su Jiyuan in a KTV. Bei Xiaoshi came out to sing with her friends and felt very excited after drinking a few drinks. When she was young, she felt that going to a KTV was a kind of freedom. When they parted, because she had left her phone in the room, she quickly ran back to get it. When she charged into the room, she bumped into Su Jiyuan, who had just booked the room and was about to come out. Bei Xiaoshi told her later that she would never forget the strong beating of her heart in that moment. Although she didn't pay attention to Su Jiyuan, that didn't mean she didn't know who he was. After all, he was a famous person in school. She would occasionally meet him. She heard that after they bumped into each other, Su Jiyuan's classmate didn't forget to tease her. At that time, Bei Xiaoshi only felt her face burning, lowering her head and apologizing. Not only did Su Jiyuan return the phone to her, but he also told the rowdy students not to bully her. This matter was originally over, but after returning home, Bei Xiaoshi found that there was an extra person's name in her contact list. Yes, it was Su Jiyuan. Kuku. Bei Xiaoshi gave 2 dry coughs and said, I am a person who is unwilling. You know that. He has a girlfriend? Luo Qingchun looked in the direction of his friend's table. Sure enough, he saw a beautiful girl in a white dress lowering her head and whispering in his ear. Bei Xiaoshi slightly knit her brows and said with an unhappy expression, Maybe. Luo Qingchun still wanted to say something, but she was drowned out by waves of cheers. Yi Jin, Yi Jin, Yi Jin, Gu Qing Nua, Gu Qing Nua, Gu Qing Nua. After the 2 waves of cheers, Luo Qingchun shook her head with a smile and said, Why do I feel that this is a bit like a competition between fans? As soon as her voice fell, the beautiful girl in the white dress raised her megaphone and shouted, Let us support School Hunk Su, all right. The students of Civil and Martial High School No. 3 seemed to have grasped the resonance of the whole team. In the next second, they shouted at the top of their lungs, Su Jiyuan, Su Jiyuan, Su Jiyuan. Chapter 375. Luo Qingchun could feel Bei Xiaoshi tremble beside her as a look of sadness flashed in her eyes. She rarely saw Bei Xiaoshi like this. She always felt that when a cheerful girl was sad, it made people's heart ache, because she must be very sad. The referee blew the whistle and the game began. It had to be said, Martial 3 really was worthy of being the high school basketball champion. This team was very good at both offense and defense. If it wasn't for Yi Jin and Gu Qing Nua, the score would have been pulled apart. Yi Jin's 3-pointers were very accurate, with an accuracy of almost 80%. Every time he made a 3-pointer, the fans in the stadium would cheer enthusiastically. At this moment, he was the center of attention, even if he wasn't the only center of attention. Luo Qingchun looked at him on the court, shining in all directions. It was like with every spin and jump, there was a gaze that was focused on him. That dazzling. It had to be said, although Gu Qing Nua had turned into a scumbag in another world, he was still quite good at basketball. Moreover, his tacit understanding with Yi Jin wasn't bad. But the others weren't that good. They couldn't even keep up with the most basic physical strength. During the half-court break, Gu Qing Nua gave a general idea of the strategy, and Yi Jin agreed. Luo Qingchun gave him a glass of water and asked, Can we win? It's hard to say. Yi Jin looked at the score and said in a cold voice, 10 points isn't the most difficult thing. The most difficult thing is that there are some people on our team who can't keep up. What about the bench? No, Luo Qingchun didn't keep asking since if Yi Jin said no, it meant no. Qingchun. After that, he suddenly looked into her eyes and asked, Do you want us to win? Of course. Luo Qingchun didn't forget to add, It's the school's honor. If we win, can you do something for me? His eyes had a faint Liguang look, like they were filled with expectation and desire. Luo Qingchun was a bit surprised, but after a while, she said with a faint smile, All right. Although she didn't know what it was, this feeling of being chased by a male god. How nice. At the start of the second half, the other side even had 2 substitutes, but they were still the same team. They were behind by 10 points, but after Gu Qingnua's encouragement, everyone seemed to have more energy to fight. Su Ji-yuan, as the captain, changed his strategy in the second half. He specially sent 4 people to watch Yi Jin and Gu Qingnua, not letting them play as they pleased. But Yi Jin's 3-pointers were already at an inhuman level, not giving anyone a chance at all as he scored. After half the time had passed, it had already reached its climax. The cheers from the crowd were getting louder and louder, as if they were all shouting Yi Jin and Gu Qingnua's names. Su Jiyuan didn't think that the 4 people he sent to keep an eye on them wouldn't be able to effectively stop them from scoring. Instead, they gave the other ordinary players a lot of chances to score. After a few rounds of confrontation, the score of the 2 schools was very close. Yi Jin shot a 3-pointer and tied the score. At this moment, there were still 50 seconds until the end of the match. Whoever scored first would win. His teammates quickly dribbled the ball, and the ball was under Yi Jin's feet. Su Ji-yuan was the only opponent in front of him. The crowd held their breaths as they waited for the final result of this match. But the quieter it was, the more Yi Jin heard a creaking sound. Chapter 376. Luo Qingchun seemed to have noticed something. Looking up, she was frozen in place. In terms of psychology, this was called cerebellar paralysis. This meant that when a person was in danger, their cerebellum couldn't react, and they didn't even have the strength to move their feet. Many car accidents happen like this. It wasn't because the victims couldn't escape, but rather because they couldn't move their feet. Qingchun, Xiaoshi. In the blink of an eye, Yi Jin threw away the basketball in his hand and flew in Luo Qingchun's direction. At the same time, Su Ji-yuan didn't care about the game at all as he rushed to the seats to hug Bei Xiaoshi. Pung. After that, the lamp slammed into the chair and glass flew everywhere. The scene fell into chaos. The girls in the seats that weren't pushed aside were all injured to varying degrees. It's fine, it's fine. Yi Jin hugged her trembling, patting her back as he softly whispered in her ear. He knew that she was very afraid. It's fine. She took a deep breath and slowly clenched her trembling hands into fists. She looked up and said, "Where's Xiaoshi?" Yi Jin looked to the side. Bei Xiaoshi was being held by Su Ji-yuan, not being injured at all. "Relax, she's fine." His cool and gentle voice sounded in her ear, making her anxious heart slowly calm down. With such a large accident happening, the basketball game was naturally stopped. To be safe, Luo Qingchun and Bei Xiaoshi went to the hospital with the injured girls for a detailed examination. She softly leaned against the hospital bed as she slightly knit her brows, feeling a bit unsettled. She felt that this accident wasn't right, but she couldn't tell what it was. System, calling the system. Does the host want to ask if this was an accident or if it was man-made? Right? The host has the space-time mirror in your storage space. You can take it out to see what happened. All right. Ding. Successfully took out the space-time mirror from your storage space. One-time use. The mirror that slowly appeared at her right hand was surrounded by glass beads, looking very luxurious. Luo Qingchun blinked, and the scene in the mirror slowly became clear. Cheng Qianzi had followed several hoodlums to the basketball court the day before the game and had done something to the lights. A faint sound came from the mirror. She covered herself with the quilt and leaned closer to listen carefully. "Little sister Qianzi, we've done you a huge favor this time. You have to thank us properly. Qianzi, look at how much Brother Kuan dotes on you." "All right, Brother Kuan is still the best." Cheng Qianzi narrowed her eyes and said that Luo Qingchun thought that I would forget about the matter from last time. She really is naive, it's just not time yet. In this world, no one could steal Gu Qingnua from her side. No one could. However, I don't know when this light tube will fall. One of the punks raised his head and said, "If it doesn't fall tomorrow, then all our efforts will be in vain. They will fall. The heavens have eyes. It's best to smash them to death." Cheng Qianzi gave a cold snort as a sinister look appeared in her eyes. The next scene was Cheng Qianzi's anxious appearance on the court. Since the game began, she kept softly shouting, "Quickly fall, quickly fall, quickly." When the lamp was finally about to fall, the corners of her mouth curled up into a wide arc. Chapter 377. She slightly knit her brows as a cold look appeared in her eyes. She thought that after the military training incident, they were even since that night's military song banquet was a small revenge. But she never thought that there would be a follow-up to this matter. As expected, some things would happen, and some people's nature was hard to change. "What are you doing? Why are you tightly wrapped in your blanket?" Yiji Jin's cold voice suddenly came from the bed, scaring her so much that she almost threw the mirror to the ground. "System, take away the mirror." Ding! The space-time mirror has been taken away. "Cold, cold," Luo Qingchun said in a serious voice. Yiji Jin looked up at the temperature of the air conditioner and knit his brows in confusion. "Cold. Is it? Then I'll go find the doctor to get a blanket." "Get what?" Luo Qingchun lifted the blanket and said, "I'm leaving the hospital." Actually, that young man had protected her so well. How could she be hurt? Walking out of the room, she saw Bei Xiaoshi in the room across from her. Su Jiyuan was asking the doctor about the situation, and the school beauty was standing at the door with an unwilling look. Luo Qingchun pursed her lips and poked her head in to look around. Bei Xiaoshi was very quiet, an unprecedented silence. "Hey, don't you have a lot of handsome guys in your dream on high school?" The school beauty patted her arm and said with an unwilling look, "Why are you trying to hook up with our Marshall 3 high school hunk?" "Zez." Luo Qingchun softly patted her clothes as she looked at the school beauty and said, "Don't be this rude. You cuckoo." She cut off the school beauty and continued, "Everything has a first-come, first-serve. You know that." After saying this, she didn't forget to look at Bei Xiaoshi before turning to walk out the door. Yiji Jin followed behind her. When the school beauty saw that it was the handsome guy who had hit the three-point shot today, she immediately revealed a smile. But she didn't know that Yiji Jin seriously looked at her and said, "First come, first serve is very important." Who did she offend? Why did everyone say first come, first serve to her? Who was that little girl? She peeked inside and noticed that Su Jiyuan was looking up at the girl from time to time. He didn't notice that she was still standing at the door. Although the two of them didn't spend much time together, they were recognized by many students in the school as a good-looking couple. Whenever the two of them went in and out of the campus, they would attract a lot of discussion. Logically speaking, she really liked this feeling. He had always thought that Su Jiyuan treated him differently. But today, when he saw him disregarding the match on the field and his own safety to save the girl from the enemy team, he was shocked. She suddenly felt like she wasn't that important anymore. When she walked out of the hospital, Yiji Jin followed her and kept asking the same question. "Are you really all right?" "Brotherhood brother, you've already asked this question no less than 3 times. She turned around and looked at him with a sweet smile. "This isn't like the quiet but passionate school, hunky." Yiji Jin heard this, and a Li Guang look flashed in his eyes as he said, "Originally, I wasn't some school hunk." "Poochie." Luo Qingchun couldn't help laughing as she said, "The important thing is that you're quiet but passionate." He was a bit surprised. Looking at her clear eyes and that sweet smile, he couldn't help feeling satisfied. There were people coming and going at the intersection, and the sunlight fell onto them. A gentle breeze blew the corners of their uniforms, and there was a faint begonia scent in the air. October, the begonia season. Chapter 378. The basketball game had received a lot of attention. According to the marks on the lights, it was confirmed that it was done by someone. But there were no cameras in the basketball court, so they couldn't find the culprit in a short period of time. As for the results of Dream 1 High School and Marshall 3 High School, it was a tie and they both advanced. Then it was like Dream 1 High School had cheated, easily beating all the high schools like kings. Yiji Jin's 3-pointers still flew into the sky. In the end, after a month of competition, the finals began. History was always shockingly similar. The two teams in the finals were the Dream 1 High School and Marshall 3 High School that had tied in the preliminary round. This time they didn't sit in the friends section, rather they sat in the second row. The reason was very simple. Gu Qingnua had brought Cheng Qianzi. Bei Xiaoshi coldly looked at the friends section and angrily said to Luo Qingchun beside her, What do we do? I can't suppress the wild energy in my body anymore. I want to go up and hit Cheng Qianzi. Tell me, was the matter last time really caused by her? Lady, your male god is looking at you. Luo Qingqian's eyes turned cold as she looked at Cheng Qianzi in the friends section and said, it's her. She wanted to take the initiative to make a move, but she wouldn't make a move if the enemy didn't move. Something like framing someone, she really couldn't do it. As a person, one had to have a kind heart, or at least have a clear conscience. With the whistle, the game began. Both sides kept going back and forth. The points were very close. The crowd was filled with cheers. The sweat that fell onto the court would always attract screams. This was the youth that we had experienced. Bei Xiaoshi beside her was desperately shouting Su Ji Yuan's name like there was no one around her, attracting looks of disbelief. Luo Qingqian looked at Bei Xiaoshi with an awkward smile and said, "You're in the wrong section. You should go to the other side." "I also wanna, but there's no space on the other side." Bei Xiaoshi spread her hands with a helpless look. One of the members of Martial 3 High School seemed to have deliberately bumped into Yi Jin and stomped on his elbow. The referee called for a stop and flashed a red card as a warning. Su Ji Yuan tightly knit his brows and quickly ran to Yi Jin's side to pull him up. Then his eyes turned cold as he looked at the player who had been sent off. It wasn't wrong to want to win, but to win by unscrupulous means, even if you won, it would be a kind of humiliation, not pride. "Sorry." Su Ji Yuan looked at Yi Jin and sincerely said, "It's fine." Yi Jin knit his brows and looked over at Luo Qingqian in the audience, shaking his head. Luo Qingqian only felt her body tremble, and her heart couldn't help but be moved. The moment he was injured, the first thing he thought of was not himself, but whether the other party would be worried. The other team members also ran over. Looking at his red hands, they asked, "Are you all right?" He shook his trembling hands and looked at them. "I'm fine. Continue." Yi Jin didn't shoot any three-pointers in the following game. Rather, he passed the ball to Gu Qingnua as much as possible, having him grab the rebound. Beep. The whistle blew, signaling the end of the match. The points of both sides were miraculously tied, and the match entered the most intense part. Three-pointers. Each team sent out a member to shoot three-pointers. If one team missed, it would be considered their loss. Chapter 379. The crowd instantly became incomparably silent. Everyone held their breaths as they waited for the final result. Martial 3 sent out Su Ji Yuan, and Dream 1 High School sent out Gu Qingnua. They could change people midway, and as long as they score, they would win. Luo Qingqian knit her brows. Looking at Yi Jin standing to the side, she began to feel a bit of worry. There was only one reason why he didn't play. His hand was really injured. According to the draw, Martial 3 shot first. Su Ji Yuan was very stable as he shot right into the basket. Gu Qingnua took a deep breath and dribbled the ball twice before raising it and hitting the basket. Cheng Qianzi on the side shouted out, becoming the center of everyone's attention, "Be quiet." Gu Qingnua knit his brows as his lips slightly moved. At such a crucial moment, every word would determine the accuracy of the goal. Both sides were fully focused, not daring to relax in the slightest. The two went back and forth until Su Ji Yuan made a mistake. The ball bounced off the basket and didn't score. Gu Qingnua had taken the first point of the game. The surroundings were quiet. Everyone had entered the most nervous state. There was a pure figure that flashed in his mind, and his heart began to throb. After that, he turned to look at Luo Qingqian in the crowd, and his lips curled into a beautiful smile as he said, "Desk mate, if I score this goal, help me study math later." AI. The crowd was instantly filled with Gu Qingnua's words. The surrounding crowd began to whisper with a bit of jealousy and envy. The jealous person was Cheng Qianzi. She turned around and stared right at Luo Qingqian, looking like she was about to explode. That face, it really didn't seem like something a first-year high school student would show. As for the envious people, they were mostly the crowd. My God, what kind of good luck is this Luo Qingqian's life? School Hunk Yi has a scandal, and she's also the desk mate of School Hunk Gu. So envious, She must have saved the galaxy in her previous life. The important thing is that she seems to be a top student, getting full marks in math every time. Yes, this was all thanks to the system. It had nothing to do with her. Speaking of her results, she expressed that she felt guilty. 5 seconds later, Luo Qingchun faintly nodded. Just as she was about to say something, she discovered that an earth-shattering change had occurred on the field. Yi Jin moved forward as fast as lightning and took the basketball from Gu Qingnua's hands. Without another word, he turned in a beautiful arc. 3 points. Gu Qingnua stared blankly for a few seconds, unable to regain his composure. Wow. In just an instant, the crowd boiled over. Oh my God, do you have to be so handsome? Damn, this old man's maiden heart. Yi Jin's actions even stunned Luo Qingchun. She had never thought that this youth would use the most special method to give her a shock that she had never experienced before. Or he could use this three-pointer to tell his love rivals that Luo Qingchun was his girl. It wasn't overbearing, it wasn't cold, and it wasn't crazy. He used a quiet and special way to express what he thought in his heart. Bei Xiaoshi beside her opened her mouth and couldn't help saying in an emotional voice, "My desk mate, this action is truly handsome." On the basketball court, the referee finally came back to his senses after 3 seconds and pressed the button to end the game. There were the words Dream 1 High School written on the LCD screen. All the students stood up and cheered. This was the first time Dream 1 High School had won a high school basketball tournament. This feeling was like a pride that no one had ever felt before, filling the hearts of every student. Chapter 380. After the match was over, Cheng Qianzi made a call and quickly left. Luo Qingchun narrowed her eyes and pulled Bei Xiaoshi beside her, looking over. Bei Xiaoshi immediately understood, and the two of them followed. Cheng Qianzi never thought that someone would follow her, so she was very calm when she met Liang Kuan. "Qianzi, you've made Big Brother Kuan wait." Liang Kuan revealed a wretched smile as he said, "When will you let Big Brother Kuan have a taste of this little classmate?" AI. Cheng Qianzi's eyes revealed a trace of panic, but she revealed a charming smile and said, "I found a better one for you. You'll definitely be satisfied." Liang Kuan rolled his tongue and sniffed twice. He used his rough hand to rub his stubbly chin and said, "Qianzi, this time, don't disappoint your brother Kuan and the group of brothers. You've promised me many times. If I can't eat you, I have to give you some other benefits, right? Of course, I am Big Brother Kuan's little sister. Of course I'm thinking of you." Cheng Qianzi lowered her head and revealed a smile, revealing a fierce look in her eyes. When Bei Xiaoshi heard this, she rolled up her sleeves and wanted to fight, but Luo Qingchun instantly stopped her and said in a soft voice, "Fool, what benefits can you get if you go now? At most you will just ruin her plans. But for someone as scheming as her, she will naturally think of a second plan. Then what do we do? We can't just wait for her to make a move against us." Bei Xiaoshi was so angry that she was trembling. She bit her lip as she angrily looked at Cheng Qianzi not far away. "So what if we wait for her?" Luo Qingchun was stunned. Her lips curled into a faint smile as she said to Bei Xiaoshi, "Do you still remember what I said? For a person like Cheng Qianzi, what can hurt her?" Gu Qingnua. Bei Xiaoshi knit her brows and pursed her lips as she said, "But what does she want to do? It seems like she's preparing something, and it feels like she's targeting you. You're not stupid to be able to think of this." Luo Qingchun softly patted her head and said, "I can guess around 80 to 90% of it." She narrowed her eyes and looked at Cheng Qianzi in front of her. Her eyes flashed with coldness. Perhaps because he had experienced a lot, he could roughly guess the thoughts of this kind of person. She was definitely not less terrifying than Cheng Qianzi in the parallel world. That night, in order to celebrate their victory, the basketball team held a celebratory banquet. Luo Qingchun received a text from Gu Qingnua telling her to go to the convenience store the back door to buy a few bottles of cola. The phone number was indeed Gu Qingnua's, but she knew who had sent the message. Luo Qingchun told Bei Xiaoshi about her speculations. Hearing this, Bei Xiaoshi's eyes almost fell out. She can't be this vicious. Bei Xiaoshu clearly did not believe that a first-year girl would be this scheming. However, in this world, there would always be one or two outliers. They were scheming and shrewd. It had nothing to do with age, but the filth in the depths of his heart. Yes, that's probably the case. We'll have to take it one step at a time. Luo Qingxun looked at her and said, "We'll keep in touch." But Bei Xiaoshu looked at her with a bit of worry and said, "If your speculations are correct, won't it be dangerous for you to go alone? I can see that her godbrother is a member of society." Chapter 381. Luo Qingxun walked to the store while discussing a plan with the system. System, calling the system. The host can tell me what you want. The host has exchange points anyway. Humph. It's under a system. I need two things. Host, please speak. 1. A substitute puppet that looks exactly like me. I know you have it. I've seen it in the shopping center. 2. One gave a person a drug that would cause hallucinations. Yes. The substitute puppet will cost 5,000 exchange points and can only be used once. So expensive. According to the price, it's already very cheap. As for the hallucination drug, what kind is the host referring to? It's the kind of drug where the person you love is in front of you when you're pa. The system's old face instantly turned red, but it still spoke like a machine. Yes, 500 exchange points, but it's not a drug, it's an inhalation powder. All right, deal. Ding, 5,000 exchange points has been taken. Successfully exchanged for the substitute puppet. Can only be used once. Luo Qingxun was stunned and instantly looked around. It was a good thing this path was remote. Otherwise, if a person appeared out of nowhere, she would be on the front page of the supernatural newspaper tomorrow. She patted her little chest and looked at the substitute puppet in front of her, giving an emotional sigh to herself. It really was too similar, other than a bit of a daze in its eyes. Almost every pore was the same as hers. The host can control the substitute puppet with your mind and help you do what you want to do. Kuka, my powerful system. It seems like you've already read my thoughts. Yes. So, was my guess of what Chang Qianzi wanted to do correct? Completely correct. The system spread its non-existent hands to say, after being in several worlds, the host has become a bit more astute. Facing a person like the supporting female lead, she doesn't even wait for others to harm her before making a counterattack. Rather, she has already made the best defense. Unsmart. When the substitute puppet approached the store, a white business car suddenly had several people come out. They heavily hit the back of her head before taking her away. The entire process took less than 30 seconds, and there weren't many people on the side of the road. Even if there were a few uncles and aunties that saw this, they would quickly leave, not stopping to help at all. The substitute puppet was only a puppet. It couldn't feel pain and didn't faint. It just fainted when Luo Qingxun used her mind to tell it to faint. After the business car drove for around 30 minutes, it stopped in front of a private club. It was a very remote place, and the street was filled with red lights and green wine. It seemed like a place that specialized in selling sex. Luo Qingxun closed her eyes and could see everything the substitute puppet could see. Come, bring this beautiful girl up for Big Bro. Liang Kuan revealed 2 rows of uneven teeth that were dirty yellow and black. Even if one wasn't standing next to him, one could still feel a burst of spicy breath. Cheng Qianzi was the last one to come out of the car with a video camera in her hand. She knit her brows. Although she didn't like this place, her lips couldn't help revealing a smile. Finally, he was going to get his revenge as he wished. This girl was about to be played with by a group of perverted men, becoming disgusting and dirty. Thinking of this, her smile became even brighter. Like this, her Guqing Nuo would only belong to her, and no one would be able to steal him away. Chapter 382. Liang Kuan almost couldn't wait to throw the substitute puppet onto a waterbed. Cheng Qianzi calmly set up the camcorder and looked at him as she said, "Big brother Kuan, don't be anxious. I'll help you record it, and you can enjoy your majesty in the future." AI, it's little sister Qianzi, who understands me. He took out a mask from his inventory and said, "But Big Brother is shy, so it's better to wear a mask." This little girl suddenly took out a camcorder, and he didn't know what it meant. QJ was a serious crime. so he couldn't leave any evidence behind. But he wanted to enjoy his body and the ability to pop, so naturally he didn't reject it. It's good that Big Brother Cohen likes it. Ching Qianzi gave a cold laugh before walking out. She sat down on the sofa by the door and hearing the vulgar sounds from inside, her eyes filled with satisfaction. She couldn't help muttering, Luo Qingchen, this 3P asterisk SSY and 5P feeling, it's not bad, right? In the next second, a faint voice suddenly appeared, and everything in the air instantly froze. Ding! 500 exchange points has been taken. Successfully used teleportation, one-time use. Ding! 500 exchange points has been taken. Successfully used teleportation, one-time use. Luo Qingchen knit her brows. There was a mist in the air, and it was a drunken stupor. She took out the inhalation powder the system gave her and poured it all into Cheng Qianzi's nostrils. The next second, she dragged her body into the room. When she walked in, her face turned red. There were 3-4 men on the waterbed, taking off their pants while touching the substitute puppet on the bed. Luo Qingchen felt her stomach churn, and she directly called her substitute puppet over. The substitute puppet was something outside of space, so it was immune to the power of space and time freeze. She quickly changed the clothes of Cheng Qianzi and the substitute puppet before throwing Cheng Qianzi onto the bed. She took the mask from her inventory and put it on her face. Finally, she softly took her substitute puppet's hand and hid behind the screen in the room. In the next second, he snapped his fingers, and the space-time freeze disappeared. Cheng Qianzi, lying on the bed, took a deep breath and inhaled all the powder into her windpipe. In an instant, an illusion appeared before his eyes. These included visual and auditory hallucinations. She was wearing a mask, so he couldn't see her clearly, but she could vaguely see the appearance of the man on top of her. He had fair skin, handsome facial features, and a smile like a spring breeze. He was looking at her affectionately. Qing Nuo, give it to me. Cheng Qianzi opened her mouth as her eyes blurred. Yo, you're quite coquettish. You even want me to give it to you. Don't worry, I'll make you feel good later. After saying that, Liang Kun quickly took off all his clothes. Seeing that their big brother didn't let them go out, the other lackey also took off his clothes. Of the 3 people, one was in front, one was behind, and the last one was sitting at the side, unable to blend in. In his anger, he took off the mask on Cheng Qianzi's face and put his thing in her mouth without another word. Instantly, a white mist sprayed onto Cheng Qianzi's face. There was a smile on her lips, looking like she enjoyed it very much. Ah, the sound of waves fluctuated and the air was filled with a dirty smell. Chapter 383. Host, the effect of the powder is about to wear off. Say so earlier. I don't want to stay in this dirty place for a second longer. The 3 men had already finished and were lying on the side in a drunken stupor. Luo Qingchen raised her right hand and snapped her fingers, freezing the surroundings again. Ding! 500 exchange points has been taken. Successfully exchanged for space and time freeze. One-time use only. Although the exchange points were a bit extravagant, if the effects were good enough, it was worth it. She changed the clothes of the substitute puppet and Cheng Qianzi again, before dragging Cheng Qianzi to the sofa outside. She casually picked up a piece of cloth and wiped her face and hands. Finally, she placed the substitute puppet on the bed with a pained heart before hiding behind the screen again. With a snap of her fingers, everything returned to normal. She used her mind to control her substitute puppet and told her to run out without caring about anything else. Hey, stop. After that, the 3 men reacted at the same time. They tried to grab her, but they found that the other side was too strong and they couldn't grab her at all. In less than 3 seconds, the substitute puppet had already run out of the private club. Cheng Qianzi heard this and suddenly woke up, seeing the substitute puppet running downstairs. She knit her brows and her face turned red. How did she fall asleep and dream? But this dream really was beautiful. Thinking about it, it left a rich aftertaste. She promised that she would make this dream come true. Qianzi, that person ran away. Liang Kuen's group ran out with their pants on while saying, "They're too strong. We couldn't catch them at all. It's fine if they ran away." She waved her hand and said in an uncaring voice, "Anyway, Brother Kuen's group has finished enjoying themselves. AI, you don't know that Brother Kuen still likes your little sister Qianzi." Liang Kuen looked at her in a wretched manner and said, when Brother Gang was doing that, all that appeared in front of his eyes was little sister's figure. Brother Kuen. Chang Qianzi revealed a look of disgust before saying with a smile, "In the future, there will definitely be girls for Brother Kuen to enjoy." She said this while walking into the room. She took the DV and said, "Then we'll call each other. Hey, next time, you have to bring me a virgin too." Brother Kuen scratched the back of his head and shouted with a wretched expression, "Tight feels good." Chang Qianzi was walking while taking out the videotape from the camcorder and heading to the school. She had made so many preparations, and finally, the heavens had eyes. Everything had gone so smoothly. The only thing she had to do now was to copy the DV tape to the school's theater and set a time to play it. When the flag was raised tomorrow morning, the whole school would be able to see Luo Qingchen's impassioned video. Thinking of this, she felt a burst of joy in her heart, so much so that she unconsciously hummed a song. Teleportation. Ding, 500 exchange points has been taken. Successfully exchanged for teleportation. One-time use only. Ding-ling. When he moved home, he received a call from Bei Xiaoshi. "Hey, your phone finally turned on?" Bei Xiaoshi let out a long sigh of relief and said, "If you don't turn it on, I won't be able to continue lying to Yi Zhijin." Yi Zhijin? Luo Qingchen blinked in confusion and said, "What's wrong with him?" "He said that he couldn't reach you. He was afraid something would happen to you." Bei Xiaoshi said with a soft laugh, "My desk mate, oh no, your family's childhood friend, he really knows how to care about people. I won't talk to you anymore. I'll send him a text to tell him that I'm safe. Look at how anxious you are, go." After hanging up, Luo Qingchen picked up her phone to send a text to Yi Zhijin. "I just chatted with a middle school classmate. It's fine, don't worry." Luo Qingchen, ding dong. Her phone rang after that. She opened it and was stunned on the spot. Chapter 384. If one really liked a person, how could they be willing to just be friends? Yi Zhijin finally said the words he wanted to say the most, the words that had been hidden in his heart for an entire 4 years. Liking a person didn't mean love at first sight. It could also be love over time. Without knowing when it started, there was a different feeling that appeared in his heart. It couldn't be considered love, but it was a very different kind of affection. This affection would unknowingly take root in his heart and then spread inch by inch. In the end, it was a brilliant flower. Yi Zhijin on the other side had drunk a bit of wine and was sitting in a chair downstairs. After a while, seeing that Luo Qingchen didn't reply, he sent another text. "Sorry, I might have drunk too much." Yi Zhijin, ding dong. "Then was your first sentence true or your second sentence?" Luo Qingchen. After that, without any hesitation, Yi Zhijin's text was sent to her phone. "First sentence, Yi Zhijin, I know, I want to eat red day buns tomorrow." Luo Qingchen. "Ah." Yi Zhijin, sitting in a chair downstairs, suddenly called out, filled with joy and happiness in his heart. He really was happy, a happiness that he had never felt before. He had finally written a single chapter. After time and hard work, he had finally written a chapter for the two of them. How many things he had done to be in the same school as her, she didn't know, but she didn't need to know. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 90%. When Luo Qingchen heard the system's notification, she was a bit surprised. So his affection for her had unknowingly reached 90%. This mission had been completed a bit too smoothly. At the same time, Yi Zhijin borrowed a bicycle from his roommate and rode it home. At this moment, there was only one thought in his heart. That was, he had to make many red day buns. The next morning, when Luo Qingchen and Bei Xiaoshi walked into school, they saw Chang Qianzi walking over. She looked quite spirited, with a peach blossom face and a smile on her lips. Luo Qingchen narrowed her eyes and watched her walk towards her step by step. "AI, Luo Qingchen, why do you still have the face to come to class today?" Chang Qianzi crossed her arms as a playful smile appeared in her eyes. She looked over Luo Qingchen. "Are you crazy? What does it matter to you if people come or not? Does your family live by the sea? Why do you care so much? Bei Xiaoshi gave a cold snort and rolled her eyes at her. Hee. Cheng Qianzi bit her lip as she looked at Bei Xiaoshi with wide eyes and said, Surnamed Bei, let me tell you, don't be arrogant, otherwise you'll end up the same as Luo Qingshun. Come on, do you think I'm scared of you? Bei Xiaoshi could not hold back and pushed her. This scene was coincidentally witnessed by Gu Qingnua, who had just walked through the school gates. Cheng Qianzi's eyes slightly raised. The moment she saw Gu Qingnua, she immediately looked at Bei Xiaoshi with an aggrieved expression and said, The matter of the fight last time is already over. Why are you still holding on to me? You? What is it? Gu Qingnua slightly knit his brows. He came forward and pulled Cheng Qianzi behind him before standing in front of Bei Xiaoshi and the others and saying, This is school. Stop causing trouble. My God. Bei Xiaoshi gave a shrug and said, All right, Cheng Qianzi, I'll give you full marks for this move. After saying this, she grabbed Luo Qingshun's hand and walked towards the classroom without looking back. Chapter 385. When they came to the classroom, there was a steaming red date bun and a cup of red date soy milk on the table. Luo Qingshun turned around and saw that Yi Jijin was very seriously looking over the English test paper, until Bei Xiaoshi came over and tilted her head as she asked with a confused look, Your test paper, it's wrong. Pooh. Luo Qingshun couldn't help laughing. Yi Jijin quickly turned the paper around and said, I was looking at the wrong questions in reverse. The important thing is, Bei Xiaoshi gave a shrug and said, You didn't do anything wrong. It was clearly full marks. What kind of question was he looking at wrong? Cuckoo. Luo Qingshun cleared her throat and looked at them. Can we end this awkward conversation here? Dang, 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 dang. It's time for the morning meeting. Let's go. Bei Xiaoshi pulled Luo Qingshun's hand and walked toward the field. Luo Qingshun was very clear on what would happen next. There's a saying, if you don't seek death, you won't die. So why bother seeking death? The new semester is already half over and it's about to enter winter. When it comes to studying, everyone should pay attention. Today we will be talking about 3 things. The first is the high school basketball tournament that just ended. We have potential, so we didn't disappoint and took the championship. Just as the teaching director was giving an impassioned speech on the stage, a huge display screen in the middle of the field lit up. Comfortable, refreshing. Extremely dirty scenes appeared in front of them one by one, looking very dirty. When the scene began, there were 3 large men lying on top of a masked girl, trembling without stopping. Instantly the school exploded, and even the head teacher's face turned white in fright. Damn, what is this situation? What's going on? So disgusting. A 3P. That's right. Truly disgusting. I don't know who is this shameless, doing this kind of shameless thing when they're still underage. Cheng Qianzi's voice was very loud. Almost everyone around them could hear her clearly. Finally, the most exciting moment had arrived. Her gaze landed on Gu Qingnua, not far away. He saw that the young man he loved also had a shocked expression on his face as he looked at the screen in disbelief. A warm breeze blew past. He was still so dazzling and handsome. Yi Jijin narrowed his eyes, and his heart was suddenly filled with panic. He couldn't help moving closer to Luo Qingshun. It wasn't until he stood firmly beside her that his heart calmed down a little. However, Luo Qingshun's expression was very calm. She had a faint smile on her lips, and her arms crossed as she looked at the big screen in front of her. The image continued to play until one of the men took off the mask of the girl lying on the waterbed. Everyone at the scene gasped. Their eyes fell onto Cheng Qianzi at the same time, because the face displayed on the LCD screen was hers. The burly man instantly put his thing into her mouth and began to stir. His appearance was extremely wretched. Cheng Qianzi, lying on the bed, revealed a charming smile. From time to time, she would call out in a sweet voice, quickly, I still want, the sound of vomiting rang out. Chapter 386. Ding! The screen turned black, and someone should have gone to the studio to turn off the video. This matter could be considered a stir in Dream 1 High School. Bei Xiaoshe looked at Luo Qingchun beside her in shock, as her eyes filled with admiration. Wow, she whispered in her ear, "Baby Qingchun, you are simply my goddess." She didn't know what method Luo Qingchun used to record this video without Cheng Qianzi knowing anything. "Do you still remember what I said to you before?" She pursed her lips into a smile as she looked at Bei Xiaoshe and said, "If I could guess what Cheng Qianzi wanted to do and still be schemed against by her, then I would be too useless." "No." Her eyes sparkled as she said, "You're too useful. I feel like Cheng Qianzi is about to faint from anger. She doesn't care what other people think of her. She only cares about how Gu Qingnua looks at her." Luo Qingchun slightly knit her brows, and a cold look appeared in her eyes as she said, "For her, this should be the darkest moment of her life. But everyone had to take responsibility for their own actions, right? A pitiful person must have a hateful side. If she didn't have the system, how would this matter have been resolved? What happened afterward was basically forcefully suppressed by the school. After all, the impact of this incident was too great. Cheng Qianzi insisted that the person in the video wasn't her and that someone must have edited the video to frame her. But the school had professionals confirm that there were no traces of the video being edited. Moreover, the thing worth mentioning was the night before the morning meeting, the camera in the studio had caught Cheng Qianzi's figure. She had snuck into the studio to play the video. Like this, she couldn't clear her name even if she jumped into the Yellow River. No, she was the main culprit, so she didn't need to clear her name. Because of how serious this matter was, Cheng Qianzi was expelled from school. On the day she left school, she stood at the door of Class 7 for a long time, but Gu Qingnua didn't come out. Luo Qingchun didn't even look at her, like this girl had never appeared in her life. She wasn't even qualified to be an enemy. Time passed very quickly, and the final exam was gradually approaching. This exam was related to the rearrangement of seats. For some reason, Gu Qingnua, who had never worked very hard, suddenly became diligent. Yi Jin was the same as normal. Other than bringing her red date buns every morning, he would bring cold medicine when it was cold and mineral water when it was too hot. In short, it was as if his school bag had suddenly become Doraemon's treasure bag, full of warmth. As for Bei Xiaoshe, she was still as carefree as ever, but she seemed to be in contact with Su Ji Yuan a lot more. For example, I heard that Cheng Qianzi went to Marshall III High School. Bei Xiaoshe poked Luo Qingchun's back with a pen and said, "I heard that the man in the video is her godbrother. This time, he belongs to that underage girl and has been locked up." "Very good. He wasn't a good person anyway. But she's going to Civil and Marshall High School No. 3. Don't tell me she's seducing your Prince Charming." Ku. Bei Xiaoshe intentionally cleared her throat. Her gaze swept past Gu Qingnua's body before moving away. "My male god has good eyes, all right?" Yes. Your male god is the most handsome." Luo Qingchun looked at her as her lips curled into a sweet smile. This kind of high school life, it really was good. The hardest thing in this world was the word love. The hardest thing in this world was the word future. Chapter 387. 3 days later, the final exam results were announced. Yi Jin was in first place with a perfect score of 1050, and Luo Qingchun was still in ninth place. It really was the unchanging ninth place. What was worth mentioning was that Gu Qingnua, who was outside the top 20, had suddenly jumped to third place. Although there was a difference between his and Yi Jin's results, this result was still praised by the teacher. Even if the teacher kept his promise in the end. He changed Luo Qingchun's desk mate to Yi Jin. The students all sighed at this moment. Actually, the teacher was just giving them a way out. Although it was forbidden for first-year students to fall in love, if they were desk mates, both of their grades would be able to increase. It seemed like there was nothing wrong with that. When Yi Jin became Luo Qingchun's desk mate on the first day, he was caught by the math teacher passing notes in class. "Do you all not need to listen anymore?" The math teacher angrily slapped the table with his ruler and said, "Both of you come up here. If you get a single question wrong, the entire class will stay tonight to make up for it." His subject representative was openly passing notes in his class. This was simply an insult to math. The students all complained. but there was a male student who suddenly stood up and said, "Hey, it's Yi Jin and Luo Qingshun. We should believe in the math god." Once this was said, the teacher became even angrier. He took out the Huang Gang test paper and quickly wrote down this year's test site on the blackboard. As a first-year high school student, being able to do this was a miracle. Yi Jin took the chalk first and wrote down the questions on the left and right side of the blackboard. The process of each question was written clearly, as if it was a standard answer. He slowly put down the chalk and turned to the math teacher to say, "Teacher, can we go down now?" That's right, he brought us. As soon as his voice fell, the students in the class began to whisper to each other. "Wow, did he write it right? I can see that the math teacher's face is about to turn red. He should have written it right. Ah, he really is the top student male god, school hunky. So powerful. I feel that he can even take the college entrance exam this year. Don't tell me he's going to be the top scorer with full marks." Bang, bang, bang. The math teacher knocked hard on the table and said, "Do you guys want to come up and do the questions too?" Instantly, the entire class fell silent. The math teacher pushed up his glasses and looked at Yi Jin as he said, "You can leave first." Yi Jin looked at Luo Qingshun and his lips curled into a faint smile as he walked off the stage. After that, the math teacher picked up the blackboard brush and wiped away all the questions and answers that Yi Jin had written on the board. It was like he was venting the anger in his heart. After all, Yi Jin's answers were all right, so he couldn't say anything. Then, he opened the Huanggang exam outline and rewrote the exam questions. This time, the big questions he wrote were the key questions, and there were pictures. It took him at least 5 minutes to draw that complicated geometric diagram. When he finished the 2 questions, he slowly turned around and looked at Luo Qingshun with his hands behind his back. As the math class representative, these 2 questions shouldn't be difficult, right? Of course, these 2 questions were difficult. These are questions that even third-year high school students couldn't solve, all right? He thought in his heart, "I can finally take back some face." After that, Luo Qingshun picked up the chalk and wrote on the left blackboard for 3 seconds. She also wrote on the right blackboard for 3 seconds. Then she put down the chalk and said, "Teacher, can I go down now?" Instantly, the entire class was stunned. Chapter 388. The math teacher narrowed his eyes. He looked at the answer, looked at the blackboard, looked at the answer, and looked at the blackboard again. After confirming it again and again, he awkwardly cleared his throat and said, "You can leave." "Thank you, teacher." Luo Qingshun nodded as her lips curled into a faint smile. When she turned to leave the podium, she looked at her Mr. Childhood friend with a smile. This kind of smile, this kind of tacit understanding, it suited them. Ding! Affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 100%. The lonely youth was long. The dusk was deep and the night breeze was cold. The stubborn high school life, with this kind of youth accompanying her, it was even more colorful. But would it really go that smoothly? As the end of the first year approached, Bei Xiaoshi brought an earth-shattering piece of news. Cheng Qianzi had dropped out of school. Perhaps it was because the matter of Dream One High School had been spread, causing Cheng Qianzi to be criticized no matter where she went. The hatred and loneliness in her heart had been accumulating over the years, and there would be a day when it would all explode. On a dark path, there was a man smoking a cigarette and a woman with red lips who was also smoking a cigarette. You came out of prison quite quickly. Cheng Qianzi's red lips curled. She took a deep puff of her cigarette and looked at Liang Kuan as she spoke. Liang Kuan stroked his beard and said, "This is all thanks to you. If it wasn't for Cheng Qianzi suddenly changing her testimony during the second appeal, even if his lawyer was powerful, he wouldn't have been bailed out that quickly. Then you have to properly repay me." Cheng Qianzi gave a cold snort. She narrowed her eyes, and her eyes were filled with hatred. "Ha ha!" Liang Kuan gave 2 laughs. He reached out to hold her waist and said with a smile, "Repay you for a night of love." "Pay!" Cheng Qianzi forcefully swung away and said, "Take your dirty hand away. Let me tell you, I can save you and I can also lock you up." Cheng Qianzi grabbed his collar and said, "I want you to help me kill someone." "Kill someone?" Liang Kuan's expression changed as he said, "No problem. Let's see if you can afford the price. 500,000. Deal. Liang Kuan looked at her with a wretched smile and said, But you're just a student. Where did you get so much money? For sale? Ha! A clear slap rang out in the dark alley. Chang Qianzi glared at Liang Kuan and said, I will give you half the money first, and after you finish, I'll give you the other half. All right. Liang Kuan touched his burning hot face with a crooked mouth and asked somewhat unhappily, Who do you want to kill? After that, Chang Qianzi took out a photo from her mouth and gave it to Liang Kuan as she said, It's just a student. For someone in the underworld like you, it should be easy to take care of. It's not like your big brother Kuan hasn't killed someone before. Liang Kuan took Chang Qianzi's photo and said in a surprised voice, Why is it her again? In the photo, Luo Qingchun was wearing a pink woolen coat and standing at the school gate. Beside her stood a handsome and elegant young man. His deep eyes carried a hint of doting as he looked at her quietly. She had a faint smile that was filled with happiness. It was so contagious, as if the people walking beside her could feel the happiness in her heart. Based on what? All of this. She should have had it all. She should have stood beside the shining Gu Qing Nuo and become his most important person. If it wasn't for that damn Luo Qingchun appearing. Chapter 389. Unknowingly, it was already time for the classes. The teachers thought that this was the first watershed in your life. Making a careful choice was a kind of responsibility for your future. Dash Hong Long. Thunder rang out. It was only the third period in the afternoon, but it was already dark outside the window. Bei Xiaoshi behind her was lying on the table, looking very dispirited. I can see that your condition hasn't been good in the past 2 days. It seems like your cold is very serious. Luo Qingchun knit her brows. Bei Xiaoshi's colds usually only took a day to recover, but this time she didn't recover at all. Cuckoo. Bei Xiaoshi gave 2 coughs as her eyes sparkled as she said, Isn't it because Su Ji Yuan's birthday is coming soon and I want to buy him a present? Although she wasn't as pretty as the school flower and she wasn't as rich, but at least she could give him a decent present for his birthday. I really couldn't tell. Luo Qingchun pursed her lips into a smile and said, Our Bei Xiaoshi is quite hardworking. She shook her head and looked at her watch as she said, I'm going to skip next period. It's almost time for my part-time job at the milk tea shop. Luo Qingchun was surprised. She took the cold medicine from Yi Jin's bag and gave her coat as she said, It's raining so hard. Don't get wet again. The weather has been cold recently, so her childhood sweetheart mister would remind her to bring her coat every day. Reminding was just reminding, but he would still bring an extra coat just in case. This time, there was an extra coat. Bei Xiaoshi revealed a bright smile as she said, Muah, it's still our family's baby Qingchun who is the best to me. As soon as her voice fell, she picked up the large and small bags and prepared to leave. Were these things? Luo Qingchun looked at the large bag in her hand and asked in a confused voice, It can't be that your present also has some star paper, right? This kind of writing on star paper and then folding it. It didn't seem like Bei Xiaoshi's style at all. Ah, Bei Xiaoshi charged forward and covered her mouth as she said, Don't speak. Her cheeks were slightly red, and her bright eyes flickered slightly, as if she was very shy. He was afraid that others would accidentally reveal the secret in his heart. Luo Qingchun blinked, a sweet smile appearing on her face. In the face of such a small matter, even a carefree girl would have a shy side. Actually, this was not shameful at all. Really? Let's go. You two need to be careful on the way back. Look at the weather. There is a sign of storm. Bei Xiaoshi waved her hand at them with a smile on her face. Luo Qingchun waved at her and said, Be careful on the road. Ding-ling, the class bell rang. She lowered her head and was about to take out her English book when she saw an exquisite gift box fall beside her feet. When he opened it, he saw that it was a unique watch. Oh no, that muddlehead forgot to bring it. When she wanted to stand up, Yi Jin pulled her sleeve and said, Where are you going? Little Sure left something behind. She only went down for 2 minutes, so she's probably still waiting for the bus. I'll go give it to her and come back. I'll go with no need. She cut him off and said, Help me cover up. I'll be back soon. After saying this, she turned and ran out. running down the stairs of the school building, was a symbol of youth. Chapter 390. At this moment, she threw away everything in her hands and rushed forward like a madwoman. Raindrops fell on her fair cheeks as lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the sky, seemingly resonating with her sorrowful state of mind. Xiao Shi. She slowly picked her up as her hands kept trembling. In this year, they had been best friends. Every time she was bullied, Bei Xiao Shi would be the first to stand up for her. Why? Why was it like this? Can you call an ambulance? She bit her lip and looked at the surrounding people. Her voice was filled with panic and pleading. Classmate, you could be assured, we have already called one. Host, it's too late. When she was about to let out a sigh of relief, the system's voice sounded in her mind, breaking all her hopes. No, system, you must have a way. You are the system. Sorry, host. System, it's not that there is no way, but the risk is too high and the chance of success is not high. Get to the main point. At this moment, her mind was in chaos, and she could not beat around the bush with the system. Reversing time and space, it has been a total of 7 minutes since you gave a jacket to Bei Xiao Shi. If you want to go back 7 minutes to change her fate, you will have to pay a terrifying price. Moreover, if you fail, the most important person in this world will die. Host, you still have 30 seconds to consider. After 7 minutes, the price of reversing time and space will be even greater. Turn. Ding. Successfully exchanged for time and space reversal. Everything around her stopped, and after that, everything began to move back in front of her eyes. The black van slowly reversed back to where it came from. She looked up with cold eyes and saw the person inside. Liang Kuan. In that instant, a raging flame was ignited in her heart. This matter was definitely related to Cheng Qianzi. If the price of reversing time and space wasn't her life, she definitely wouldn't let them go. Host, you will return to 7 minutes ago in 10 seconds. Then you will have 1 hour to say goodbye to them. The system's voice sounded in her ears. Although it was still mechanical, she could hear the concern in it. Got it. She took a deep breath and closed her eyes as the system's countdown appeared in her mind. When it reached 1, she suddenly opened her eyes. Everything around him was from 7 minutes ago. Qing Chun, baby Qing Chun. Bei Xiao Shi patted her shoulder. She was holding cold medicine and her pink coat as she looked at her. What are you in a daze for? I'm leaving now. Be careful when you go back. In that instant, she looked at Bei Xiao Shi, who was still smiling. Her nose became stuffy and she almost cried. A few seconds ago, she had been hugging her covered in blood, but now the healthy Bei Xiao Shi was standing in front of her. This feeling was really good. He suddenly stood up and called out to her. He took the jacket over and said, I'm afraid of the cold. I'll give Ji Jin's to you. Isn't it the same? Bei Xiao Shi looked at her in confusion. Why is it so strange? No. Luo Qingshun lowered her head in a panic, picked up the exquisite box on the ground, and handed it to her. You didn't even know you dropped it. It really dropped. Bei Xiao Shi quickly took it and smiled at her. Muah. It's a good thing we have baby Qingshun. Otherwise, we would have wasted half a month of work. There's still a few days left. Luo Qingshun slightly looked up with a trace of reluctance in her eyes. Bei Xiao Shi did not feel anything wrong with her at all. She gently shook her head and said, although the gift has been bought, work needs to be finished. There's still 2 more days, and I'll be free. That's great. She looked out the window and said, let's go. Class is about to start. If you don't go, you'll bump into the teacher. Okay. Bei Xiao Shi walked forward while saying, see you tomorrow. Chapter 391. Why do I feel that you're very unwilling? Yi Jin turned over and looked into her eyes as he said in a soft voice, is something the matter? Without knowing why, there was a bit of unease in his heart, but he didn't know where this uneasy feeling came from. I'm fine. She blinked her eyes and shrugged. What could possibly happen? It was pure unwillingness, but what could she do? The system had just told her, although the 7-minute time reversal succeeded, she had to pay the price of 7 years. That meant that in another hour, she would disappear from this world for an entire 7 years. 7 years of time, it wasn't long, but it wasn't short either. But I feel that you have something. Yi Jin knit his brows as his eyes filled with a bit of panic. The uneasy feeling in his heart became even stronger. She lowered her head, and her pen softly rubbed against the blank page. After a while, she slowly said in a choked-up voice, "Do you believe in parallel spaces in this world? Parallel time?" Yi Jin's eyes dimmed a bit. Looking at her face covered by her hair, he softly said, "Ching Chun, what do you want to say?" After a while, she shook her head with a faint smile and said, "Nothing. I've been watching too many dramas lately, so I'm a bit emotional." The teacher was conducting a test in class, and she secretly wrote down the words that she wanted to say the most at this moment, but couldn't say them out loud. Helping each other in times of need is better than forgetting each other. Meeting some things once is already a gift. Memories intertwined, and erasing them takes time. Memories only belong to time. Yi Jin, I'm very happy that I can meet you again. Meeting this kind of good you. Meeting you who has never lost your temper with me. Being this calm and quiet. If there is a day when memories go against time, I hope that time will let you meet a better person. Perhaps you and I won't be young then, but I hope that you can still remember me when I was young. My favorite, Mr. Childhood's sweetheart. The moment the pen fell, a crystal-clear tear fell onto the pen and slowly dripped down. Finally, it fell onto the paper and spread out layer by layer. She lowered her head, afraid that her tears would be seen by her classmates. When they were young, even if they felt wronged or sad, they didn't want others to know. He always felt that this kind of gaze was too dazzling and would make people feel even more embarrassed. The rain continued to fall, and the pitter-patter of the rain slowly entered her ears. She didn't want Yi Jin to send her home, but he seemed especially stubborn tonight. She looked at her watch. There was still some time. Standing at the door, Yi Jin never said goodbye, and she couldn't say these two words. "I believe that there is such a place." He held the umbrella, his eyes sparkling as he turned to look at her. "Ah." Her voice was slightly hoarse as she looked up at him, her eyes filled with tears. "I believe in parallel universes." He slowly took out a tissue from his pocket and helped her wipe her wet hair. He smiled and said, "But I like this world more. Because this world has you. Yeah, I like this world too." She suddenly turned around, and the tears in her eyes couldn't help falling. After a while, she pursed her lips and said, "It's very late. Quickly go back." "Ching Chun." Yi Jin came forward and wanted to grab her hand, but it slowly fell down. Chapter 392. Good night. She took a deep breath and quickly walked up the stairs, finally stopping at the corner. She didn't say see him tomorrow because she knew that. She wouldn't see him tomorrow. The ticking of the second hand on the watch, coupled with the heavy rain, drenched all of her expectations and love. She bit her fingertips with her teeth to stop herself from crying out loud, because she knew that the youth who had always protected her in her youth hadn't left yet. Yi Jin was holding an umbrella as he stood downstairs. His brows slightly knit, and there was a trace of sadness in his eyes. He felt that his heart was empty, like there was something very important that was about to leave him, never to return. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. In this unknown journey of love, vows were like indispensable seasonings, making the youth even more unforgettable. But this journey suddenly stopped halfway, and all the vows turned to dust. Her lashes trembled slightly as she slowly closed her eyes. She let the tears fall and let time pass. When she opened her eyes again, it was already 7 years later. She was still in the corner of the corridor, but there were traces of time left on the walls around her. Host, actually you can choose to complete the mission. Because your mission completion rate has already reached 100%, if you end this world, you will only lose a bit of experience because of the time reversal. The system's voice slowly sounded. Actually, it knew that the host wasn't willing to leave. Since you've read my thoughts, you don't need to say such useless words. She slowly walked forward and stood under the scorching sun, slightly raising her hand. The sun passed through her fingers and shined down on her white face. 7 years of time, it didn't leave a single mark on her face. After all, to her, it was just a blink of an eye. Looking over her bag, there were textbooks from the last day and an ID card inside. Right now, She should be a 23-year-old girl. As for him, system, can you tell me how he's doing after that? The male lead Yi Jin went abroad to study 7 years ago and came back 4 years later to open his own company. Now he is the president of the largest 5-star hotel chain in the country. The hotel industry, it really wasn't his style. He is coming back to S-City today and has been invited to Dream One High School's 100-year anniversary. Got it, system, I want something. Host, please speak. Money. How much does the host want? 100,000. Requires 1,000 exchange points. System notification. Host exchange points are almost depleted. Okay, deal. She needed money because she needed to buy things and stay in a hotel. She also needed to call her parents to let them know that she was safe. The two elders have been abroad for many years. Host, you don't have to, even though I've only been with them for a little more than a year. However, family ties could never be cut off. Since he was still alive, it was not difficult to report his safety. After buying the latest cell phone, 2 sets of clothes, and a pair of oversized sunglasses, she called and booked a single suite at the Crown Hotel. After getting a room, she went to fix her hair and walked towards Dream One High School. For some reason, there was a trace of nervousness in the depths of his heart. There was the feeling of lovers reuniting after a long separation, and the throbbing of meeting again after many years. She didn't know if that young man was still the same after 7 years. Chapter 393. Because it was the 100-year anniversary, there were many people at Dream One High School. There were famous people from this school that could be seen everywhere. There were top students, school beauties, and school hunks. Luo Qingshun pushed up the sunglasses that covered half her face. She put her hands in her large red coat and walked into the school. There was still the scent of the camphor tree in the air. Closing her eyes and taking a deep breath, she felt like she had returned to her first year of high school. They were still wearing the red and blue school uniforms, and they were still willing to do anything for the sake of their so-called youth. When she was immersed in her memories, there was a voice behind her that broke her peace. Director Yi, welcome, welcome. Director Lin, I'm old. I'm about to retire. It will be the world of you young people from now on. She didn't hear a single word of that long speech. Instead, she only heard 3 words that were as cold as water, Director Lin. She found that she was still as timid as before. She could only stand with her back to him, not even having the courage to turn around. You're still as spirited as before. Yi Jin's voice was still as pleasant to hear as before. It was a voice that one would never get tired of hearing. However, there was a hint of business in his speech. It wasn't as clear and pure as before. Do you still remember when you were in school and... with who? A clear and sweet voice entered her ears, causing her to turn around in an instant. That girl held his hand intimately and looked at Director Lin with a sweet smile on her lips as she said, Director, quickly tell me about Ji Jin's past in high school. Don't tell me he was already in love at that time. Don't cause trouble. Yi Jin knit his brows, and his voice was a bit cold. His eyes couldn't help looking around. It was like he had sensed something, wanting to find that familiar figure. Luo Qingchan hid under the camphor tree behind her as her heart couldn't help beating faster. She tilted her head and looked at Yi Jin not far away as a faint mist appeared in her eyes. He had taken off his immature uniform and was wearing a mature suit. Between his eyes, he was still as imposing as before, so handsome that it seemed like he was glowing. The surrounding people seemed to have seen Yi Jin, and they all surrounded him. Some of them were his teachers, while others were his classmates. Not bad. Yi Jin, long time no see. It was another familiar voice. Luo Qingshun narrowed her eyes and saw the person's face through the leaves. Bei Xiao Shi. Yi Jin was a bit surprised when he saw her, like he was looking through something and seeing another person's figure. After a long time, a layer of darkness gradually covered the depths of his eyes. Long time no see. He nodded politely, his voice cold. Bei Xiao Shi looked at Yi Jin with a trace of pity in her eyes as she said, The matters of the past. Let bygones be bygones. We all know very well that she won't return. Excuse me, excuse me. He turned around and left without hesitation. Bei Xiao Shi stood in place and let out a deep sigh, her eyes turning red. It was indeed too far-fetched for her to use words that even she didn't believe to convince the young man. 7 years. Some people said that 7 years was a cycle. If you pray sincerely, the person you are thinking of will definitely meet you again. She closed her eyes as that girl's name flashed in her mind. That was the name of her only best friend in this life. Luo Qingchun, if you're still alive, quickly come back. Whether it is me or Yi Jin, we can't hold on any longer. Chapter 394. System, I still want something. Host, please speak. A diploma from a famous university, it has to be a real one. Yes, it's very easy. It only costs 100 exchange points. Ding, 100 exchange points has been taken. Successfully obtained a diploma from a famous university. The host's files have been stored in the university's database. Luo Qingchun dug in her pocket and made a very big decision in her heart. Since there was a parallel universe in this world, then everything could be restarted. If she worked hard, what did it matter? The past Yi Jin, the current Luo Qingchun. The past him, the future me. If he really fell in love with another girl, then she would let go and wish him happiness. After all, it had been 7 years. Since she left, she couldn't force him to stay there and wait for her forever. But if he didn't, could she give herself another chance and make the ending of this universe a bit more beautiful? A person couldn't be selfish, but they also couldn't be weak. Even if they were weak, they had to be brave. The Crown Hotel wasn't a place that everyone could apply for. If it wasn't for the fact that she had a diploma from a top foreign university, she wouldn't have been able to smoothly become an intern. You look a bit old, but you still look very young. The HR department looked at her resume and ID for a long time before finally accepting her. In the end, she was assigned to the design department. The reason was that she majored in design on her graduation certificate. God, this broken system. Can it give her a desk job? She didn't know how to design. The first day she entered the company, she had been in meetings for half a day. Luo Qingchun thought. Could it be that this was the law of the workplace? Large companies do things, and small companies do things. There were a total of 3 people who became interns with her. One of them came in through the back door, and the other one came in through layers of selection. And she came in based on her education. The head of the design department, Big Sister AI Wei, was a very strict person. She was young and beautiful, looking to be around 25 or 26, but she was very liked by the vice president. So her position in the Crown Group was very high. In order to make up for its mistakes, the system gave her the design ability. However, this kind of thing that required brain power couldn't be accomplished overnight. Even if she had the ability to design software, it didn't mean that she could handle it with ease. Besides, she didn't come a Crown to study design, okay? Okay, that's all for today's meeting. AI Wei cleared her throat and said, later, my assistant Mo will assign you tasks and tell you some things to take note of in the company. It had to be said that the Crown Group did a good job in employee welfare. Even the employees' dormitory was a hotel-style apartment. This condition saved Luo Qingchun a lot of money. Another thing that made her feel different was that the employees of this company were all quite good-looking. Even the company's security guards were good-looking, cheerful, and handsome. Of course, this included Su Liang, who had become an intern with her. Su Liang was the kind of boy who looked very clean. His every movement had a kind of elegant temperament. The first time Lin Xingxing saw him, she liked him very much. All right, I forgot to introduce him. Lin Xingxing was the girl who came in through the back door. She walked in so brazenly because Ivy's assistant, Mo, was her biological sister. Chapter 395. Hello, classmate Su Liang. I'm Lin Xingxing, and I know. I'm the intern that applied with you. And I know that I think you're very good looking. And I know. Finally, at this moment, Luo Qingchun couldn't take it anymore. She put down the design draft and looked at the two of them as she said, can you two stop this awkward conversation? Qingchun. Lin Xingxing sat back down in her seat with a depressed expression. She pouted her lips and said, are all male gods this hard to capture now? This question, it seemed like she really asked the right person. Luo Qingchun cleared her throat and said in a serious voice, first cry, second make a fuss, and third try to hang yourself. If it doesn't work, you'll find someone else. Go away. Lin Xingxing shook her head and put her head down with a depressed expression. Unexpectedly, in the next second, Ivy hurriedly walked in. Quickly, 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 quickly clean up. Vice Director G will be here soon. In an instant, everyone perked up and clicked on Baidu Knowledge on their desktop browser. Luo Qingchun, Lin Xingxing, and Su Liang were all stunned, not knowing what had happened at all. At this time, Momo came over and said to the three of them, "No matter what happens later, don't make a sound and don't try to stand out. Do you hear me? No matter what Vice Director G asks, just say you don't know." Luo Qingchun and Lin Xingxing looked at each other in blank dismay, showing that they didn't understand. A certain old employee behind her patted her shoulder and said, "Do you want to know why?" On Luo Qingchun's eyes lit up as she said with a nod, "I'm all ears." Vice Director Ji Chun is the #2 dream boyfriend of all the Crown female employees. Not only is he handsome, he is also humorous and has always been persistent in the things he likes. Wait a minute. Luo Qingchun bit her lip and awkwardly cut her off. "We don't have much time. Can you get to the main point? Since he's this good, why is everyone so nervous?" "I said it." She blinked her eyes and said, "You're always the same when it comes to the things you like and are obsessed with, and you're overly obsessed with them." As soon as the man finished speaking, the glass door of the office slowly opened. A person wearing a dark blue suit came in. Luo Qingchun looked up slightly and looked over Ji Chun in front of her. His black pupils were as bright and dazzling as obsidian, and they flashed with an awe-inspiring heroic aura. A smile as bright as the sun hung on his handsome face. Yes, he was indeed very handsome. "I didn't know that Vice President G would be coming. Please excuse me for not going out to meet you." Ai Wei took the lead and walked up. She half bowed and smiled. "Don't be shy." He put his hands in his pockets and walked forward. He looked around and said, "I heard that the design department recruited a few interns. I want to see if there are any talented people in mathematics." Mathematics? Talent? Promising talent? At this moment, she suddenly remembered what the old employee had said. She is always consistent and overly persistent in the things she likes and is obsessed with. She wouldn't be talking about mathematics, right? But Director G. Ai Wei swallowed a mouthful of saliva before saying with a smile, "They're all interns that have just graduated and they all study design. As for mathematics,